So if you're like me and you can't breathe through your nose for various reasons, I had my nose broken once and I've also just got narrow passageways in my nasal cavity. Breathe Ease nasal strips and mouth tape have absolutely changed the game. The nasal strips go across your nose when you go to sleep or train, go to the gym, and it dilates your passageways, which means it opens them up so your body can intake more oxygen and perform at its best. When you sleep and breathe through your nose, you're also going to have a better quality of sleep. It's going to reduce snoring or just remove snoring altogether. It's going to prevent you from sleeping with your mouth open, which can lead to problems like obviously dry mouth, but also sickness, dental issues, bad breath. But when you breathe through your nose, you're getting better quality sleep. So go to breatheeze.com.au. That's breatheeze.com.au and use the code THT at checkout and you will get 15% off your order. Or if you scroll down into this episode's show notes, there is a direct discount link that when you click on that link and go to the website through that link, it'll just default the discount for you for THT. So get on it, breathe better, breathe easy, and breathe right with Breathe Ease nasal strips.
It's almost time. 7, 6, 5.
Tried to hold us back, to hold us, tried to hold us back.
We will be here for.
Hey, it's Shan here. This week I catch up with the charismatic and passionate Mr. Aaron Brown. Aaron is a prolific photographer, and through the 90s he took a bunch of skate photos. In fact, there was a period of time there where you couldn't open up an Australian skateboarding magazine and not see a photo from Aaron. He also shot probably a dozen covers, took photos of literally the best to do it of that era. And I always liked his perspective and the angles that he took. They were a little bit non-traditional and he was just pushing the boundaries. These days, he's working on more creative projects outside of skateboarding, and he sits down with myself and this week's guest co-host, Mr. Jim Turvey, and just takes us on a journey through his life so far, which is very tied into the Sydney skate scene. Aaron is somewhat of a character. He's passionate, he's engaging, maybe a little bit eccentric. I'll let you be the judge of that. But all round, he's just a kind-hearted soul who I thoroughly enjoyed spending time with. You know, these podcasts, we sit down for hours at a time talking, and it's really hard to encompass someone's whole personality in that time and document their whole life story. But we get a pretty good perspective on this one. Aaron starts to really relax as we get into the second half of it, and we have some pretty funny moments as well. So sit back, relax, and get to know Mr. Aaron Brown.
Tried to hold us vain, tried to hold us back. What's the thing?
Child of the crayon, child of the light, styles of the neon belong to a culture destined to rock for eons. Time doesn't exist. Shut those cataracts, capture the virtualist. Now let's get back to what makes things seem forever, whether it's unseen, unheard, or it's 16 again. Not a bother. Fill this old man river, kill a floor.
Yeah, I'm more interested in other areas of photography, not just like skateboarding as such, but like all of the skateboarding background is part of like everything that I shoot now.
What do you mean?
It just underpins like my photography style, I guess, and kind of like to this day, like my favourite photographers are still the skateboarding photographers like Daniel Harold Sturt. There's like people like O'Mealy, Dave Chamey, and then, you know, like Grant Britton, like, yeah. And so, how can I say this? Like, so being interested in their photography kind of led to the development of my own photography. And then what I've done since then, like, yeah, I guess the skateboarding influences, yeah, underpins that.
Underpins it in regards to your style, or?
Yeah, I'd say so, and the way I look at things as well. Yeah, sorry, Shannon.
Do you find it way easier now that it's digital? Like, are you still in a mindset of I'm shooting on film, and I got to get this in a few shots?
Yes, I kind of am. Like if I'm doing like my own projects, I still use film cameras, so I do only shoot like within a few frames, but more of that's kind of like film expenditure or something like that. When I use my digital camera, like if I have like a photo job, like I don't do too many of those, but when I do one, I shoot heaps of photos. I don't know why, like a lack of confidence in kind of using digital cameras, like since you can preview it instantly. Like I think like I hold more skill if I'm blinded by the results. And
Well, has it actually developed your process, or has it hindered your development as a photographer?
yeah, I think like I've became clumsy with my exposures when I'd be using digital cameras, especially like if I'm like shooting like with available light, like not using flashes and things like that. Like
too relaxed. Just like,
I don't know, just sort of. I had such a good understanding of like the metering of light with film photography, and then when the first generation of the digital cameras came out, it wasn't so much like the metering systems in the cameras weren't accurate, but it was just the way that the cameras were reproducing like the imagery. It didn't have like the depth and tonal like values of like film photography, and then I'd bring that into question with my exposures, and I'm still like that today, even though the camera sensors and things like that have moved on a long way, and digital cameras are pretty good. But I don't have that like so I feel a lot more confident with a film camera. Which
Interesting,
is,
eh?
Yeah.
Listen, I want to delve deep into your photography journey, and I've got the legendary Jim Turvey with us today. And even before we started, you know, you've brought some of your old photos over and your clippings from newspapers and like so much history. And it's like, I just really got this sense of like, you know, this could be a really long night. And because then it's sparking Jim's memory and his knowledge, and watching you two bounce off each other is pretty magic. But before I get into that stuff, I've got this memory of you, man. I was watching TV one night back in the 90s.
I know what you're going to bring up here.
And I want to start with this because it's such a trippy story. And it was like a reality TV show, like RPA, emergency ward stuff. And I'm watching it, and some guy comes into the emergency ward with an ear complaint. And then they flush this person's ear out. And there was like 2 massive cockroaches in his ear, and that person was you.
Yes.
So tell us, man.
That's pretty funny, hey?
What happened with that?
So how's this? Like, I was at. So that was in like that was the beginning of 1997. I remember because I was at university at the time. Like, so I was living. I'd only moved out of home like properly like the year before maybe, but I'd been living in Darlington, and we just moved into a new unit in Petersham. Like, it wasn't new. It was like, you know, 1960s job or whatever. Yeah. It was like, seemed pretty clean on the inside or whatever. But I'd only been living there like for, you know, a few nights or whatever. And I woke up like in the evening, and there was just this rustling kind of on my eardrum. So that rustling, like, you can put up with it for like maybe like 20 seconds. But, you know, like put up with it for some minutes, 10 minutes, going into like an hour. It would drive you, yeah.
Like, you hear something scratching in your ear. Were you in pain?
Not in pain, but it's just the noise and the echoing and the vibrations in your ear. It would drive you insane, I'd imagine.
So what happened?
So yeah, I had to go. I can't remember. Like, it would have been in the evening at like. It would have been the daytime. Must have. So I lived above a doctor's surgery. So there was like a doctor's surgery beneath the apartment or whatever. I think I must have gone down there from memory. Oh, sorry, Jim.
Were you living with other skateboarders?
No, I was living with this guy called Sean Russell at the time. Yeah, and they probably like looked at it and didn't have the equipment to flush it out, so they sent me the RPA, and then so I rocked in RPA. I just want to get cockroach out of my ear because it's driving me around the
so
twist.
So you knew it was a cockroach? You just guessed?
Yeah, I had a pretty good idea it was a cockroach. It was one of those little brown German ones. Yeah. And so I go to RPA, and then there's like they're filming for like the reality TV show there, and they're I don't know, like the producers come up to me just super psyched. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, I really don't care. You can film whatever you want. I was going through one of those little, I think like a free-spirited phase, like, yeah, there's no hidden truth. So, yeah, they film like the flushing of my ear, and then they even do little things like, as you're leaving the hospital, can you like scratch your ear? That type of thing.
Like they wanted you to like ham it up for the camera.
Ham it up for the camera, yeah, yeah.
Shit.
And then like the next,
It's so natural.
so how's this? So I go to university, the like on, I don't know, like the next day or whatever, and like I'm in this, like some pretty much like I was doing like clinical psychology. That's what I studied at university. So basically it was like there was only me and like a bunch of girls, like that was back in the 90s that were becoming psychologists or whatever. So like all the girls that I was in the course with, they were all kind of, how girls can be amongst each other when they know something about someone, but they're not saying anything, and you're just thinking there's something going on here, but like, what is it? Because I didn't even have a television either. Hang on. I'm getting this story mixed up a little bit. So I was on TV like maybe a month later or whatever.
Yeah, so it's after it went to air.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
rocked in the university. So I didn't even know I was going to be on television. And also like people were recognizing me just in general. Like,
Did you get paid?
Oh, shit.
no, I didn't get paid. They sent me like a Channel 9 cap or whatever.
So they got your details. So
Yeah.
They wanted to, okay. Yeah, so it went to air, and then what? You got like
And the funny
Fame.
thing is with this is
people were recognizing you.
people recognize me. Like,
Shit.
no shit. And even like I even went somewhere and people going, oh, and they were talking about it like, oh, did you see on RPA like that guy with the cockroaches in his ear? Like, I don't know if they knew it was me and they were like doing that in the conversation, like, but I don't think they did.
Did you keep the cockroaches when they got them out?
No. I think my mum recorded it, so I think but I've never watched
Well, I
it.
think Jim went looking for the footage because Jim's, went on a deep research. Did you find it?
No, I couldn't find it. I spent about 3 hours the other night trying to find the
I think
footage
I think we've got
online.
it. Yeah, and everyone saw it. Like everyone saw it. Like it was interesting.
Like
yeah.
the kind of Sydney skate scene at the time saw it.
Yeah, and family saw it. Everyone at university saw it. It just seemed like everyone saw it. Like everyone was watching RPA back in, yeah.
It's
So
super interesting.
And this is just very quick. I had a Christmas beetle in my ear for 2 years,
Oh, really?
and I didn't know that you'd had the cockroach in your ear. And when Shan told me, I spun out. And I was like, maybe that's why we get along so well.
Yeah.
Because we both had the bug ear experience.
So you had like a Christmas beetle's probably about the same size as the cockroach
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
in like size, but I guess I had two.
You had two of
but
them in there.
yeah.
And mine died in there pretty quickly because I think when I went to the hospital, they couldn't. It had aggravated my eardrum and it had bled. And it was behind, because I was only a little kid. And so it must have been behind kind of in a sarcophagus of blood. And so they couldn't really see it when it was in there. And I think they thought I had an ear infection.
Yeah.
And I would go to the doctors regularly to get my ear flushed. And when we moved to Newcastle, the new doctor that we saw up here flushed it and a little leg came out.
No.
And he was like, oh, and he ran a hose from the sink in his surgery into my ear and slowly flushed it all out. And the reason I asked if you kept yours is because
You kept your one.
he put it in a little urine sample container and I took it to show and tell at school the next day.
That's rad.
yeah.
Why'd you choose psychology at uni originally?
Yes, that's a good question, Shannon. So basically, like I didn't really know what I wanted to do at university. All I knew was I wanted to go to university, like, and that sort of, yeah, there's another thing behind that as well. But so I either wanted to I wanted to do either like visual arts or some like journalism type course, like a communications course. So I applied for like Bachelor of Visual Arts and General Bachelor of Arts, and yeah, got into Bachelor of Arts. I went to it was the University of Western Sydney, so it was like a brand new university at the time. This would have been it was probably like 1993, I think it was, and Yeah, sort of I majored, like I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I did you pick 4 units. Like I did psychology, communications, computers, maybe creative writing or something like that. It was those 4, and ended up so I just excelled at psychology, for some reason, kind of, and then ended up doing a double major and then did my honours in it. So yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
But never pursued it?
I did
As an actual profession?
Yeah. So I started doing my masters, and then, so that would have been around the time that I had the cockroach in my ear, and that was that period when I was living in Petersham. And so I did my 5th year, which is it's really hard. It's a solid 5th year clinical psychology. And then, and I was kind of I was working as a skate photographer. I had a job as a cleaner, and I'm doing a full-time master's course, and things just started to fall apart at the seams, so to speak. So that year, my 5th year, my master's, all my camera gear got stolen. I don't know. Do you vaguely remember?
Was that a stolen car? It was in a car? No.
No, someone climbed up. I think they might have climbed up the balcony, where I lived in that unit in Petersham, and just so I had all my camera gear, and then so I remember that happened, and then I ended up. So long story short, I failed my professional practice in my 6th year, and then just got kicked out of uni, basically.
And then did you decide to let it go because you were well?
Yeah, they sort of did. The psychologists are they kind of knew that. It's funny, not that means anything really. When you've been through these courses and things like that, and you think, there's some sort of measure of, worth, and they can tell me exactly what I am in life. But the writing was I was already working, had more or less had the job as a photographer there. You just go out and work as a photographer. You don't.
Yeah, were you feeling disinterested in the stuff at uni and just really excited about the skate photography stuff?
Yeah.
That was making up your mind?
Yeah, because at the time when I was at uni, and sort of just fumbling through this master's course and sort of embarking on a career, really didn't know what wasn't really interested in it, basically.
Why'd you go to uni in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is there a story there? Was there family pressure?
No, not. It's more the opposite. Feeling so when I left school, thinking, okay, so this is the early 90s, right? I finished I did my HSC in 1990, right? So there was that was a recession era, it was. But I think I had just had a sort of my sense of worth. I felt I wanted to be more in life and didn't want to sort of just work I had a job working in Coles when I was in high school and then my first year out of school, things like that. But I kind of wanted to be a more professional person or something like that. Just wanted to sort of achieve something a little bit more in life, and felt that university was probably the way to do that, and also felt that it would just increase my esteem as a person. I don't know if any of that did, but yeah.
I think you're at the right table here because, Jim, you felt the same, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I did want to go and study. I did a Bachelor of Arts majoring in English and creative writing. I wanted to study that. And I wanted to be exposed to other people who were interested in that kind of thing, but I also think there was kind of some kind of I don't know, prestige attached to going to university. Not that I necessarily believe in that now. It was more about being, it was more about a confidence thing for myself. I think if I thought I could complete a course, it wasn't about what the course would get me.
Yeah.
It was about kind of my own self-worth. And I don't necessarily believe in that now, but I do think, and looking back on it, I learnt so much from even just being at university and being around like-minded people, not necessarily the coursework. And I am a believer in tertiary education. If you think it's for you, I don't put a lot of worth in people going, oh, so-and-so did this, he's smarter than you. I don't believe in that kind of thing. But I do think, obviously, I don't think I would be sitting here with you two tonight doing that. I think it gave me the skills that I use almost every day.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you just said, Jim. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a big thing is
Those immeasurable skills of like problem solving, analyzing, and probably developed your writing indirectly.
absolutely just even writing essays. Even
Right.
if, it's 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 the same as doing skateboarding tricks. Writing is just practice makes perfect. It's just you get consistent at doing something if you do it over and over and over again. And university is a great place to go and do that, where somebody that knows what they're talking about will actually look at that writing and tell you whether or not it's valuable.
It's funny because you did, like, your creative writing is, aren't you, Jim? Whereas I'm like more psychology, but writing is so integral to psychology, and it's in the
Absolutely.
academic sort of, referencing and citation. And, you can't just sort of, you always got to attribute credit to.
Did you find satisfaction in that?
Yeah,
though?
I loved it. I love crafting up like those psychology reports and essays and things like that. And like just as Jim was just saying, it was that sense of, learning to write and learning to write really well.
The critical thinking, that is,
Sorry.
as much as I said, I don't think tertiary education is for everybody. A lot of people, some of the smartest people I know were completely autodidactic, completely taught themselves everything they know.
Autodidactic.
But I do think, especially in this day and age, critical thinking is really, really important. And I think it should be taught at school. The ability to analyze information successfully and break it down critically and discuss it with people without arguing.
Yeah.
And looking at the sources of information too now more than ever is really important, I think.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
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 Go.
Oh, it's fine. Well, you're a teacher.
You're so polite, Aaron.
What?
Listen, you have the right to talk over us. We don't have to. Okay, you're the guest tonight, so don't be so polite. When you want to talk, you go.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because you're a teacher, Shannon, and I guess how and what you were just saying, Jim, about now I've got to frame your words.
What's
sort of
didactic?
to be able to sort of to think independently, and I'm just sourcing information as well, credible information. What do you think about that, Shannon? With regards to education and sort of,
well, you got to remember though, we're from a different generation, and you have to always try to put yourself in the shoes of the next generation. Think about it, and we always used to criticize older people for not understanding us. And so I'm always very conscious of not doing that to the younger people.
Yes.
And you're dealing with a generation that were born with access to information that we never had. Phones, they were born with phones in their hand effectively and searching things up just like that. So their skills are so different. Their skills they know that they can rely on it's how they're utilizing technology or not utilizing technology as opposed to their ability to think critically. It's really hard to quantify, actually. I've really analyzed it. Yeah. But I think that ultimately I feel like the critical thinking skills are getting progressively worse.
Yeah, wow.
Because of the oversaturation of information.
Like a symbiotic relationship with information or their phones almost. So they rely on that as almost like a second, a second brain almost. I don't know.
Well, that's it. They're just defaulting to it. I mean, let's face it, we do it too. I don't know how many times you're I'm just going to search it up.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed to actually before I search it up, which is not a bad thing necessarily, maybe give it a little bit more thought, delay that process, and then search up more accurately, and then starting to devise, where exactly your sources of information are coming from and how reliable they are, as opposed to you do a search on most search engines, like Wikipedia is one of the first things to come up. So it's is that the most reliable source of information? And it's teaching young people how to actually, decide what is creditable and what isn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, but look, yeah, what do you got? I mean, I don't know. It's a really big discussion, that one. So
I just wanted to ask Aaron something maybe completely different.
Go, dude. As long as it's cockroach related,
It's not cockroach related, but can we just, for me personally, even I just want to hear this, and I've asked you in person, but I know you. So you started skating in the like the Balcombe Hills area. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
And you were around like Dave Rocks and like Sin, Michael Davidson and stuff. Do you want to? Can you just give me like a brief overview, or as in depth as you want, actually? How come everybody that comes from like the Balcombe Hills like area all became somebody? Like, is Kerry Fisher from out there too?
Yeah,
like,
he's from Cherrybrook.
How come everybody from out there in that area in the late 80s and the 90s became a famous skateboarder or a famous skateboarding photographer? What is in the water out there? Can you just like give us a bit of a history lesson?
Yeah, that's a good. There's something out there like in the water, like so to speak. Like I think. So we all like. So I grew up in Castle Hill. So like I moved there in 1980, and probably like so I was just like 7 years of age or whatever I was back then, and Davo, like, he lived, like, up the road, like, maybe, like, half a K up the road from me. Like, he lived with his mum and his grandparents. They all lived on the same road. And I kind of met Davo, like Michael Davidson, like, when I was a kid. Like, I would have been, like, 10 or 11, maybe. I don't even think I was in high school when I met him. And Tamara, his sister. I also went to Cubs at this same age, right? So I was like, and I went to Cubs with Hank Scott and his brothers, Glenn Scott. They're like Borco through and through, like. And then, so there was no skateboarding, like, at this point, like, but yeah, we were all from the same area. And then when I started high school, we all started skateboarding. I went to high school with Glenn Scott, Matthew Warner, like Wally. And they were friends with other people from the Balcombe Hills area, like Jeff Bennett, Russell. Freckles, yeah. There would be David Rocks, Chris Tudor. There was Paul Savos. He was even, then we sort of, yeah, but Paul Savos is going into the Parramatta area now. But like people like Roxy were, I think he was from North Mead. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just, yeah.
Oh, keep going.
Yeah, it's remarkable when I kind of like think back, because we all just stayed tight with skateboarding. And there was Kerry Fisher as well, as we already mentioned, from Cherrybrook. But I think like Glenn Scott and Hank Scott were kind of like they kind of brought cohesion together with everyone and created kind of like a scene. And this is particularly when skateboarding started to die out as well. Like we're going into like late 80s, early 90s now. Yeah, and so Glenn and the Scott
You
family.
think that was just like driving the progression?
Definitely, like Glenn Scott. He's like Glenn and Hank. They were kind of like Davo's coach. You know what I mean? They really took Davo onto their wing, and they just wanted to see the best for Davo because they could see how brilliant he was at skateboarding. And yeah, I guess I grew up in an area where we had like a tight clique with skateboarding, and yeah.
Fond memories?
Oh yeah, like sort of like, all the different, yeah.
So you were from actual Balcombe Hills or Castle Hill?
Castle Hill.
Castle Hill, born and raised.
Yeah, so I'm not really Borka, really. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
They're pretty precious with
I
don't go there.
Yeah, I won't. Like, I mean, I kind of am, but I don't think like, I don't like they see me as one. But anyway, let's leave it at that.
I'm sure they would. Like, how would you reflect on your time at home in your early days with your family?
Yeah, so it's just like my mum and dad, like they're still married. Like I actually live at my parents' house, which is in Lake Munmora. So I don't know, like for all the dysfunction, there's obviously been some function that's held things together pretty well. But yeah, I came from a pretty good home in the context of having parents, and that my parents loved me and
Supportive of everything you tried.
Yeah, that would have been like everyone was apprehensive of skateboarding back in that era.
How old were you when you started?
I would have been like, I had like a little board when I was probably like 7.
Yeah.
And then like that would have been like probably like that late 70s sort of boom. I had like a fiberglass one. And then
You do go back.
but I didn't ride that for a little bit, like, and pulled it out every now and then, like maybe every 6 months. I took it for a burn down the driveway, like with no shoes on, that sort of thing. Probably got hammered my toes, smacked into something but I got like a proper board when I was like 13. I think I started riding that board again when I was 13, waiting for my birthday because I wanted a proper board, like a reflex for my 14th birthday.
Yes. Why were you attracted to it?
This Back to the Future would have been it. Yeah, Michael J. Fox kicking up that board. And
I swear you put it down to a few things like Back to the Future or Tony Hawk's like computer game, PlayStation game, which I never played.
You never played that?
Nah, but most people will say, oh, it's because of Back to the Future, all that.
Yeah, Back to the Future, like definitely our era, like, because you got to think like there was, we wouldn't have even seen like footage of even skateboarding was you only saw that rock and slide around the bowl on Wide World of Sports on the Saturday Arvo, and that's the only thing we ever knew of skateboarding. Back to the Future. So that was, because I'm a street skater, right? Like I skate mini and all that, but and vert and stuff. But
I guess following the trajectory and look, I'm really, and I know Jim is too, really eager to get into the nitty gritty of your photography journey. So you obviously love skating and you're skating with that Borco crew. That were probably the people you would mostly skate with.
Yeah.
Like your Davos and your, the Scott brothers and
Was that-
all
yeah.
that crew. They were your crew?
pretty much, yeah. Like
Okay.
I didn't, so I go to school, like I was in, like me and Glenn and Wally, like we were all in the same year and they would all hang out lunchtime. We just talked about, that's all we would have done is talked about skateboarding all through year 9 and 10.
And the high school was called?
Gilroy College.
There you go.
Yeah.
And Glenn and Hank went both into that.
Yeah. So Hank's
that.
2 years older, so he was in my brother's year.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, and
because
he-
Hank moved to Nowra, you know that, don't you?
I do know that.
Yeah,
I was,
I mean,
I was telling, we're talking about that. I was talking to Jim about that just a couple of days ago. Yeah.
I mean, shout out to Hank.
That's I've known like your like Camo for ages. Like
But Hank really was like a big brother to me. He
Yeah.
always had my back.
You're such
I don't know why. He just did. He was,
yeah,
shout out to Hank. Thanks, Hank.
yeah. He
And
was.
I know Glenn by default through Hank, really. So,
Yeah, it's funny. Like I used to see Aaron, like when Hank, before he joined the Navy, like he worked. I think he worked at like Franklin's, like in Castle Hill, like just like, and he was just doing time there for like a year until he was. I don't know. I think he had to meet like he had to be 19 or something. I don't know what it was, but yeah, he had to wait a year until he joined the Navy. But Hank was a little bit like he would just go off skating by himself or whatever. So he would like Glenn and like Kerry Fisher and. Jeff Ben, those guys didn't really come and skate the banks at Castle Hill High. Whereas Hank would, you know what I mean? Like, and every now and then I'd bump into Hank, and I'd be like, to skate with Hank was like, you get people and you just love skating with them. They're so much fun to skate with. Well, that was like Hank, yeah,
Really?
and yeah, he had a big he made a big impression on me.
Did he?
Like when I was like in year 10, you know, like 11, 12, that when I was younger.
yeah.
Thought he was. Yeah,
Well, actually, what kind of student were you at high school?
like dumb student.
Were you? Bullshit.
I wasn't dumb, but like
You went top of the class?
nah. I would have like looked out. I would have been like just looking out the window, like thinking they should have like a like a vert ramp out in that grass area out there. And yeah, I wasn't really. I only went to school because I had to be there, and I stayed on for year 11 and 12 because I already had a job. Like I was working in Coles. Like I worked like Thursday night, Friday night. And on Saturday, like, so I was actually like making good money as well when I was in high school, but I didn't want a full-time job because I already had a job and I kind of thought work sucked. So I sort of, even though you have to do it, but it's kind of why I stayed on, did year 11 and 12. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, with that skate crew then, like, did you get into photography so you could shoot skateboarding or were you already into photography
Yeah,
in a creative way?
That's a pretty good question. So it's awesome actually, because like skateboarding like exposed me to magazines like Transworld or like I think I got Thrasher first, like, but even like someone like Bryce Knights or Luke Ogden, they're really good photographers, and you're looking at these like.
So you were looking at those mags going, okay, that's a rad photo.
Yeah.
But who took it?
Yeah, I'm starting to look at, I was looking at that. And then when Transworld came out, like, and then like, say, not came out, like when I started getting Transworld, like, because remember, this is like 1987, like, they'd get imported into the skate shop and that type of thing. You didn't just buy this at the news. You could a bit later on, but like, but then seeing Grant Britton's photos and, like in Transworld, and then he took photos of other things as well. So he, like that vacant pool shot or whatever, with the palm tree, so you're looking at, I was looking at these photographs and just thinking, and then I also looked at surf magazines before that, a little bit just before that. But I thought like the crossover, like different, but I found that like with skateboarding photography, they were looking, like, if, for example, like there was an article like on Canada or Montreal or whatever they Transworld ran, they'd take photos of other things as well. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't just action, sport, skate photography, but it just really and surf photographers do the same thing. I used to take photos of bums on the beach and girls' bums on the beach and stuff, and then just beautiful photos and so
sunsets.
And I got into photography, obviously, just from looking at, like, these magazines.
The skate mags.
Skate mags in particular. That was like, bang, I want to be a photographer, but not like a skate photographer. I wanted to be a photographer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Not specifically skating.
No, I always wanted to be like a journalist photographer.
Well, do you remember that moment? Do you remember that moment where you went, hey, that's what I want to do?
Yeah.
You actually remember it?
Yeah. Yeah, because, like, my next door neighbour, like, so one day when I was young, like I was in year 10 or something, like the guy that lived behind me, like he was my, like I lived in my, I think high school, I was in year 10, right? So it was this guy called Peter Wagner, like, so he lived with his family, he's like the property behind. And my parents were friends with the Wagners, and Peter was a bit of a dick. He just pinned me down one night, and I think they'd probably all been drinking a little bit as well, the parents or whatever, and he just started grilling me about asking me about what I wanted to be in life, and then I just pulled it out. So I want to be a photographer. And then the interesting thing is, like, he had like, he didn't lend me his camera. He had a Canon AE1. So I don't, like, if you know, like people that listen, if people listen, like know a bit about photography, like they know that's like a good camera to get started with. Like, but he didn't lend me the camera, but he lent me like a book that he had bought, like how to use the Canon AE1, and I just studied that book. So, and then so I kind of knew how to use the camera manually before I even had a camera.
Right.
Yeah.
And for those listening, we need to really clarify this is pre-digital.
Yeah,
This is developing film.
Yeah, I hadn't. Yeah, that era. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. So that was when I kind of. Yeah. Yeah, knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Knew. Like, who were some of the early skate photographers that really stood out? Like you mentioned, Grant Britton.
Yeah,
Bryce Knights. Who were some other big influences?
Yeah, Luke Ogden, Steve Sherman. Like Mofo, like Spike Jones. Daniel Harold Sturt was the one that came along, and you just sort of, even I wouldn't even think I was aware of, like, that he was using like his photography. He was using medium and large format cameras and doing an unusual printing and things like that. My brain wasn't even kind of up to par and understanding what his approaches to photography were. But you can't help but stand back and just see that his photography is brilliant. You know what I mean? Like, anyone can see that.
Were you just like copying angles and thinking about the angles he was taking? Like in those early stages?
Yeah, I didn't really copy, like, because, see, when you're starting out, you'd start out like with a basic, like I start out with like a Praktika, like a Russian, metal camera with a 50mm lens. So I don't have like a 16mm fisheye or an 80 to 200 on it or something that those photographers would have been using. So I certainly wasn't getting their angles, but kind of like persevering with like a camera like that, you kind of, you learn to start to see things in your own way because you're sort of limited with the equipment that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any other Australian photographers, like skateboarding photographers, to talk to as well? Like at this stage, did you?
No, David Walsh would have been the only. There was two. There was Michael Restuccia. So I used to bump into him when I was like doing I was in high school. When I was like in year 11 and 12, we used to go skating at the squash courts at St Mary's. They had the spine mini ramp there, and they had like a vert ramp there as well. Yeah, so like Borco guys, they were like, because the thing I didn't tell you this about like with Glenn and Wally, like when we were on high school, they all left in year 10, whereas they went and got apprenticeships. Like I think they both became roof plumbers, but I stayed on, so I didn't really have much to do with them anymore, like because. But I'd bump into them, even though we're from the same, we've known each other. They kind of went like Wally Glenn, and they sort of, how can I say it, and Jeff Bennett, and and Russell, peace. And they all really skated, because they all worked like they had apprenticeships and they were pretty tight. But I used to see them out at St Mary's, and then. And so I used to see Mike Restuccia out there. So Mike Restuccia he worked for Canon at the time. Like he was like a photographer, but he was trying to be a skateboard photographer. And so I could see what he, like he was using flashes, like shooting indoors, things like that, real basic stuff. I didn't know a lot about photography. It takes years to acquire the knowledge and things like that.
Would you ask him for advice or anything, or?
I think I would have back then, I would have asked him about like what his shutter speed was that he was using, like if he was shooting indoors, like onto fluoro lights and things like that.
And O'Mealy hadn't started shooting yet, right?
He wouldn't have even, he wasn't even.
But did you know Mike?
I knew him as well at this time. So I knew O'Mealy through skating Curl Park. So we became friends, like also like, I would have been like in year 11 or year 12, but I would bring my camera. So I had like that Praktika camera with the 50mm lens, like my first camera that I got like for my birthday when I was in year 10. So I've got like photos of him actually like doing like hand plants and things like that, maybe doing invert and rock and rolls. I think he like wore a red helmet. He would know that. Like, yeah.
Because I was going to ask you, sorry, Jim, but I was going to ask you, do you remember who your first skate photo was exactly?
Yeah, it was the first one.
So did you just ask that? Okay,
no, but that's a good question. So the first skate photo was that. So I got my camera for my 16th birthday, and then we went up to Castle Hill High School, and it was this guy called. It was either Sean Gorman, like this guy I went to school with, doing like a slappy grind on like a metal pole that was on top of the banks. If it wasn't him, these are like the first frames out of this camera, first roll film I've ever put in it. It would have been Michael Wilson. This guy's like a legend. He's doing because I've got two frames that took a backside boneless that he's doing on the bank. So it looks like he's doing a judo air. It's like a cool photo, eh? Like his foot's not planted. Yeah. And that's pretty good backside boneless frame. I think that might be my first frame. And if not, the other one he did like a frontside boneless, and again I've got that, and his foot's not on the bank too, which is pretty good.
So just to clarify, this is a single shot. It's not. You weren't taking a sequence.
No, motor drive was.
There's no motor drive.
Prospect of a motor drive was light years away at that point.
Wow. So it was literally about like sharp timing.
Yeah, and trying to get it in focus.
No top-mounted flash.
No flash. That wasn't even in the board. Yeah, didn't even. My brain wouldn't have known remotely what to do with a flash. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
So that was your first person. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned, like, because at the same time, like, I think the second roll of film I had for that camera, where I think the Bones Brigade came to Martin Place, like, in 1980, 88. Like, Hosoi was there as well.
So was it the same time they had the demo at the Opera House? Was it that?
The one at the Opera House, that was like...
That was 89.
That was 89. This one, that was an Easter demo. I think this one was like later in the year. Like, it would have been like October or November, because my birthday was in October at the time. So, but yeah, like, so I bought a flash because it was nighttime. And I'm talking to this lady on the train, and she looks at my flash and she looks at my camera. She goes, "Yeah, that'll work." I don't know. Like, to me, like, it looked like she knew. She looked like a photographer to me. I didn't know anything about photography. So I shot like 40 photos, maybe more. I think I passed 40, and I'm like, flash is working pretty well. I'm thinking, but the film should have ended by now. They only have 36 frames on them. I haven't loaded the
I
tongue.
thought it was 25. It depends. Oh, you might have got the bigger one, 36.
Yeah, I thought it was like, I was thinking maybe they've given me some more film in this roll, but I hadn't actually like loaded the film into the camera properly, so I didn't actually take any photos.
And then you ruined the film and you exposed it because you opened it and checked?
No, even dumber. Like, I rewound the film and then put it in the lab, and it's just come out completely clear, which means like there's like if you've got like if your negs are completely clear, it means that like no image has been exposed and the fixer's just removed all the chemistry and it's just nothing. Yeah,
Jim, like you're an amazing photographer as well, and
No.
I know you won't. I know you'll deny that, but you are. I think you're pretty good. Okay, is that better if I say you're pretty good?
No, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm not just saying that.
Don't fake it till you make it.
Okay.
No, but anyway, so like you definitely started as in the digital era, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I've taken little 35mm photos plenty of times just with disposable cameras, or I've got like a little plastic just film camera, like a little. It was literally made by Kodak, and you could just buy has no settings on it.
Yeah,
it's the equivalent of a disposable camera that's not disposable.
And
you get it processed. That was the first thing I ever shot like photos on. But there's no. It's the equivalent of taking a photo on a phone. It's just not digital because I don't get to. When you shoot those photos, I can't change the settings other than buying a certain ISO of film or something. Like there's no shutter speed. It's literally just pointed at something and press a button.
It's got like two settings, like some cameras they might have like 3 shutter speeds, like 1 second, 1/60th of a second.
Yeah, this one doesn't even have that.
And 100th of a second.
Yeah, this one doesn't even have that. But and then my partner is a food photographer, and I borrowed one of her Canon bodies, and then I actually bought a fisheye lens off Brendan Caldwell, who was one of Rowan Davis's filmers, and he had it for filming, like with a digital video camera. But it was actually it was a Canon lens, and I bought that and just started experimenting with it. Yeah, but all digital then. Yep.
Yeah. I guess it's less consequential. I guess again, you get a roll of film, you stuff it up, you go and pay for the processing of it, and then you got nothing to show for it. Yeah.
I was quizzing Jim about like one of his pictures he took, like, because he showed me one of his, like, Jim does a zine, right? And I'm looking at the photo, that's pretty good. And like I'm looking at where the light's coming from. And then I sort of think like, hey, like, did you use a light in that picture? You know what I mean? Like, and he says yes. And so Jim is like just started shooting, like, I don't know if you just started shooting skate pics, but he's used like, I don't know, like a Pro Photo Studio light or something like that as a fill light. That's not like a speed light or anything like that. That's like a proper light, Jim.
Yeah, that's because I just borrow all of my partner's equipment.
Right. You're like, I need to light up this spot, and I just
like the flash that I used to shoot the photo I took of you in Slam.
Yep.
That's the light that Aaron's talking about.
Oh, right.
So you would have used it was like it's also wireless as well.
Yeah, so you
didn't have cables running.
No cables. You got a remote, and like you can actually change it to you can change the remote sensor to high speed. So when I change the like the speed of the photo, essentially, like how fast I can capture you moving. You set that so it will capture you in real time, essentially. Like,
Wow.
Could you?
as I pull the trigger,
It's just such an interesting contrast to have you both here. Like Aaron.
See, I've
coming to
never
the
done
house,
that
and
in a
that's
skate photo. I've
You
never
haven't?
used like a studio light as
Well,
like
okay, then.
as
Well,
a main light in a skate photo.
Right. Well, so then as things started to progress for you in your photography journey,
Yeah.
and you started using flashes for night photography and stuff like that. Like, how was it different to what Jim's doing? Like, break it down.
Yeah, I use like little speed lights. So I use the ones that you put on the top of the camera.
Yep.
You know, and then so you can. I use like several. Like I'd use like a bunch of those, like 3 or 4 of them, or whatever. But there's sort of
Would they be disposable or something? Were they the ones?
no. They're just like a typical flash that you put on like an SLR camera.
Okay.
You know, they go up and then bend over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're kind of like a harsher light. Like with like a studio light, you can diffuse the light more. You can just there's more, and it's just a different sort of speed lights are harsher basically.
Yeah, okay.
As well. But there's a style about the way they work that's appealing as well. So
Interesting.
it's not like one's better than the other. It's just like the effect that you want to get out of.
one definitely requires a lot more skill. I'll tell you that much, and it's not the one I'm doing.
Oh, you're talking about, you mean like using like, because you can preview what you're doing?
No,
with it?
you're, I mean, I'm essentially just pointing and, setting the camera up and setting the light up and waiting for the skateboarder to do a trick. Whereas with using film and those little speed lights and positioning them stuff, it's a whole science. It's really different to what I'm doing. And I'm being really honest there. That's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a writer, not a photographer. Aaron's a photographer.
Yeah. And so do you think your photography journey just grew out of a necessity to have a photo with your written articles?
I started shooting little 35mm photos to go in zines and stuff, but it was really because Brendan Frost, who was Newcastle's primary skate photographer, like the most recent one, moved to Melbourne. That's really, I'd already started experimenting a little bit for fun, just to like see if I could take a skate photo. But the only reason I started taking more was because Frosty moved away, and Connor Reeve was shooting with Sam Cody a lot, who's one of my favorite contemporary Australian skate photographers. Is amazing. But Sam lives in Sydney, and he only comes up here every couple of months or something. So it's just with Frosty gone, and there's no access to photographers.
Yeah.
Ty Nielsen that you had on the podcast recently, he's a great skate photographer actually.
Oh, really?
I know he's tied up with running the shop and stuff at the moment. He shoots a good photo.
Yeah, cool. So I guess, Aaron, the reason what I'm leading to here is like, do you feel that skate photography is of less value than it was back in the 90s?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There's certainly like I pick up. I don't really look at skateboard magazines that much. Like I really don't look at them at all. And except for like I looked at them for years. Like a good I got like 15 years on a decade of Thrashers and Transworlds at home or whatever. And all photos, like my own magazines and stuff where I had my pictures and things like that. But yeah, I just don't think it's changed. Like I look at, I think like Aha, one of my mates, Aha, Andrew Alcorn. He lent me a Thrasher, and there's still shot, like the lighting's not all that different. Like it's offset lighting coming from, like different
Like less
views.
creative? Because
It's all fisheye stuff. It's not. I don't think it changed really. I thought it just kind of seemed the same to me. Like
Interesting.
whereas
same angles, same lighting, less creativity.
I think when it was film photography, you use the film was really slow, so you're restricted to using 50 and 100 ISO film, which means that you're shooting like with slow shutter speeds all the time, particularly if you're skating in the city like late in the afternoon. Like you remember how Sydney CBD is late? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there'd be like patch of blue, like you know, like in the sky, like above the buildings or whatever. But like, yeah, it's predominantly dark. So you had like exposure drag in a lot of your photos. So you see like a lot of movement. Some of that's like exposure drag can look pretty good, but yeah, you would see that in a lot of old photos.
Even the ones you were showing us earlier,
that like, but also like because it was, yeah, I think like, okay, like there was just so many like kind of options for creativity that you could use. Like you could use a 35mm camera, you could use a medium format camera that shoots either 6x7 or 6x6, or, you know, like it basically shoots another format. It's not so much the film size, but those whole camera systems are different, like the lenses and things. They all feel different. And then you can go into large format, which is even like using cameras with bellows and you're focusing on ground glass screens. And then there's half frame cameras, which like split a 35mm frame into 2 frames. So that's just film. That's just the different types of cameras you can use and the different format films to fit those cameras. And then there's things like using infrared, there's cross-processing, there's all the different printing techniques. There was a lot that was involved in film photography, as opposed to just maybe using like, you know, like a full frame mirrorless camera, 35mm, you know, like.
It's interesting.
Do you think that, and this is a genuine question, and maybe for both of you too, do you think that that lack of progress or innovation that you're talking about in contemporary skateboarding photography, that, you know, somebody that took a break from skateboarding looking like you and looking at a magazine now, you don't think that the kind of artistry of the photos has changed that much? Do you think that sometimes comes back to the magazines too? Because skateboarding is really like ingrained in, it has to look a certain way. Yeah. And sometimes if you experiment with photos, like I really like doing it, like mucking around, taking from a weird angle or using the fisheye through something or whatever and being silly, there would be no chance of getting those photos, even if it's a fantastic photo in the photos, right? There'd just be no chance of getting them published, even if the trick's fantastic, even if it's a great photo, because it doesn't look like a traditional skateboarding photo. Yeah,
you have to sort of subscribe to a style that.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I haven't.
And it's not
I think they all. Sorry, Jim. I think the photos all look like they're just flooded with flash and you know, like compensated with like a background exposure that fits it, like, and it's either shot like with like a longer focal length lens or a fisheye. Yeah, like that stuff's. Yeah. It's a subscribed style now that people don't want to deviate from it too much.
Maybe.
But I don't know. I don't look at the magazines that much, but certainly that one particular Thrasher that I looked at like a year or two ago was flooded with pictures like the ones I just talked about. Yeah.
Oh, go. As let's just get back to the chronology a little bit. Like, I want to go back to, okay, you finished uni, you had the cockroach in your ear, you had a bad time, you had a bad year, and it kind of like it sort of had a bit of an
bad year. Had my camera bag stolen.
Had your camera bag stolen, and it kind of just effectively rattled you, put you on a different trajectory, and realised that, you know, I don't know if I really want to be a psychologist. Yeah. And at the time, like, your photography was popping off. Like, from my recollection, there was a period of time of a few years where every single Australian skate mag that you would open, there was photos just predominantly from you, Mike O'Mealy, Curtis Marr. You three were kind of just, especially you and O'Mealy, were just across the board.
Yeah.
Do you remember that era?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I want to delve into that time. I mean, were you earning a livable income primarily off skate photography during that time?
Pretty much, like.
And that's all you were living off?
Yeah. Oh, when I was doing my, my first year, second, like, I think I had like jobs like working car detailer and car yards, things like that. Like when I was like in my first and second year, I sort of got good at like my photography. Just like when Mike like I'd look at Mike O'Mealy's photos, like in the first like slam magazines that he was having his photos in, like, and he's like learning curve just went, you know, like super steep, and just he picked up like slave lighting, and all his exposures and everything was just on point tip, and then me seeing that and becoming envious of like what he could do. And
Did you feel like you're in competition with him at times?
I don't think he was too much worried about competing with me, but like I certainly would be looking at his photographs and thinking like I wanted, like I always love like clear, well lit, sharp photos, and he's pretty good at doing that. So yeah, I certainly kind of I always want my photos. I want my photos to be better than his, and my exposures and things like that. My flashlight.
Oh, you want to get published more?
Oh well, it wasn't so much that. Like the thing, it was interesting what you said about the pictures either being taken by him or by me. There was no other photographers. Like we both when we both became photographers. This is the early 90s. People like Scott Needham, he'd become a snowboard photographer. Like Scott Needham was full-blown Thrasher photographer. This is like when I was in high school. People forget about that. Like, yeah, there was like David Walsh. I think he moved to America and like to pursue fashion photography or printing or something like that. Yeah. There was Dave Pang, who was in the Air Force.
Gourlay,
he was with me and O'Mealy. Like Gourlay was a little bit before me. Like me and him were started around the same time.
I think he was shooting. Yeah, he has a photo of Justin Hughes or Jizzo in that same issue that you had your first photos. Yeah, that your first photos are in.
Yeah, he's doing like
Slam 17. Yeah,
doing like a nose grind on an orange bench or something, isn't he?
Yep. And in South Australia, and it says Justin. And it just says his name's Justin.
Yeah, and Steve Gourlay used the slave in that photo.
He did, yeah.
And I wouldn't have known how to use a slave at that point.
For those that don't know, because people are listening, like just tell everyone what a slave exactly is. It's a type of flash.
So you got like it's. So they call it it's a second flash that you use, like when you're taking a picture. Okay. So usually
it's on a sensor.
It's on a sensor.
Or a cord if you can't afford the sensor version.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. A sensor or a cord or it can be on a remote, you know, so it's triggered by like a receiver. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
and very important to skate photography because it can really change the lighting and the angles and the effect that you're trying to achieve.
Well, the whole thing with skate photography, if you're going to use like a fisheye lens covers like 16 mils. Like 16 mil, that's the focal length of the lens. It's almost like 180. It's not 180 degrees, but it's a pretty wide lens. Yeah. So a flash, when it pumps out, like even with like a diffuser on it, like a diffuser is to broaden the light. One flash by itself's not going to cover like the coverage like of a 16 mil fisheye lens, particularly. So if you're shooting a skate photo with 16 mil with fisheye lens and just one flash on the top of your camera, you're going to get like these black edges around the side because the flash coverage just isn't enough. So you kind of need to use slaves to basically like to fill the frame with light. Yeah, and that's why they're to light up the whole scene. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, because I think at what point were you? Because I know you predominantly worked for Skateboarding Australia, right?
Yeah.
But not so much Slam.
No, because
or were you actually an employee of Skateboarding Australia?
I wasn't employed by them.
Australian Skateboarding.
Sorry, Australian Skateboarding. Yeah.
Yeah, Australian Skateboarding.
Yeah,
so when I started out my first pics that I ever started sending into the magazines, they were the Slam magazine, and then there was no Australian skateboarding that was basically Australian skateboarding was Skating Life. It was the same publishing company, right. But Skating Life they'd shut that down, so there was only one magazine, Slam magazine. When I first started sending my photos in. So around the time I started university as well, I had this sort of an identity crisis. So I gave up skateboarding for about a year. It was I'd even hang out with skaters, but I wouldn't skate. you know, like just watch what they're doing, stuff like that. It's like, even though like you're yearning on the inside to want to skate, you're just punishing yourself. Like anorexics do it with people do it to themselves. I kind of did that to myself. I don't know why.
You don't know why?
No.
Okay. Burnout?
Yeah, it'd be some stress related sort of thing from growing up or something like. Yeah, like.
And then you got back into it and then really delved into. That's when you started working more as a photographer for skateboarding.
Yeah, well, so.
Wait, you had a couple of photos published in 92.
Yeah,
then you took a year off, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but Andrew Curry was bummed at you.
Yeah, he was pissed off because with Cuzzo's we had all been through this. Like we all, you know, like when skateboarding died in the late 80s and suddenly like we're the least popular people in school and we've got no friends to go skating with. That happened to Cuzzo, and like from what I understand, and so he didn't really particularly like it when people just gave up skateboarding. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Even though
So was there an actual riff, or he was just kind of disappointed?
No, there was no. I never spoke a word to him. Like I've spoken to Andrew since then, over the years, and yeah, he doesn't. But yeah, there was no.
No, I just sorry to interrupt. I just meant he's a lovely guy. I more meant that he was bummed because you'd be sending him some great photos, and he was the editor of Slam at the time, and then all of a sudden you stopped contributing.
Yeah, I didn't even look at it from that angle, but yeah, there was no one taking photos in the country at all.
Yeah.
At that time, there was David Walsh, and he was doing his own he had
street noise
and hardcore, and then moving to America. Everyone had bailed out. There was no photographers at all. Cuzzo was taking pics as well.
Yeah, right. It was too.
He took some great photos.
There was Steve Gourlay, myself, Andrew Curry, all those other photographers, Scott Needham, Mike Restuccia, like Dave Pang. Yeah, they'd stopped taking skateboarding photos at that point. I don't know about Dave Pang.
Pang was still shooting stuff.
He was probably still shooting stuff, yeah.
In Canberra, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I sort of felt I didn't want to tread lightly saying that about David Pang because he loves skateboarding photography so much, yeah.
And then, because this is just before Amelia kind of hits...
But he was...
Hits the scene, right?
Yeah, this is all, before that. Even Trent Roden was taking photos.
Oh, yeah.
Who did Slingshot magazine. Yeah, there was no photographers. So when me and Amelia, so for him, it would have been pretty easy to get there was no one taking photos. And the same thing, so I'd stopped taking photos from my crisis.
For a year.
For about a year. And
it's funny you laugh about that, but...
I look back at it and just,
think, what? Partying, chasing girls, partying, stuff like that?
No, studying, trying to, learn the right essays and, just committed to, wanting
just
to...
Off skateboarding. Just off it for a while.
Off everything that I'd done up to my point in life.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's...
And it was really beneficial, though, to you moving forward, though? Having that year of just finding yourself?
Yeah, I think so. It's... Because I started skating again and just sort of... And, but I would have taken skate photos though as well. I remember taking photos of. You remember that photo? You remember this one, Jim? It's that one in Crank of Dave Rock's doing the nose slide and Dave O's holding the slave in the background.
Yeah,
I would have taken that at that point. I would have gone out with them. They were skating, and I would have been just thinking, why isn't Aaron skate anymore? And I would have worn jeans, and I probably wore some cherry coloured Doc Marten shoes.
So this is
I've gone out and shot a skate photo and I think
and you got it in a magazine.
It's like in Gleam in the Cube when Christian Slater.
I don't know how to describe it, but I just tried to. I tried to not be I was trying to not be the person I was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but then you came back to who you were.
Yeah, sort of.
And then you really.
It's been a struggle for my whole life, in some ways.
You seem like you're in touch with who you are as a person, though.
Yeah, I am. But, I've always, you question your confidence, question your identity, your integrity, things like that about yourself. Yeah.
But I really want to, what I want to know is, about it being a working skate photographer. Right?
Yeah.
I want to learn about this. when were you actually really doing it, and which magazine were you mainly doing it for, and which editor were you really working
Yeah, so that would be Australian Skateboarding. So it was Nick Farris was the editor.
And then Gordo took
Gordo
over.
became the editor, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because Nick was awesome. Like, Nick was a little bit older than, so I would have, like, so me and O'Mealy, like, I'm old. I think I'm maybe a year older than O'Mealy. Like,
Yeah.
but we would have only been like, I don't know, like 22, 23. Nick would have been like 30, you know what I mean? Which is young. He seems old. Yeah. But he was, he wasn't trying to be a skateboard editor or anything like that. He was just tied in with Mason Stewart, which was the publishing company that ran these magazines, and he was actually like a snowboarding magazine. He edited the snowboarding magazine, but they just decided that they wanted to start up, like, relaunch Skating Life, but they had it as Australian Skateboarding. I won't go any further. Like,
Why not?
yeah, you know, you can probably read my mind, Jim.
What do you mean you won't go any further?
Oh, because it was John Fox was the editor of
I know
Skating
that. Yeah,
Life.
Skating Life, yeah.
But they had Nick Farris do it.
Yeah. But, I mean, good memories, good times?
Yeah.
I mean, how many cover shots did you have?
Oh, heaps, probably like a dozen of them, I'd say. Yeah.
More.
Yeah, can't.
And
Heaps of
Jim
them.
would know the exact one amount.
Oh, yeah, so I'm sort of going off track. So it was just the perfect opportunity to become a photographer, like, if you followed your passion, like with skateboarding, because there was no one doing it.
There were no photographers. I mean, there was a handful of photographers, but there was Slam, then Crank comes out, and then Australian Skateboarding comes out. So there's 3 mags. That's separate to all the little zines, and there's only like 3 photographers. So of course you're going to get run.
And Mike O'Mealy, he wasn't allowed to send photos to Australian Skateboarding because he had like a contract with Slam magazine.
Did you have a contract?
Mm-mm. So I just got paid for like what got used. And and this is interesting because, like, Slam was really I'll give you an idea about, like, how much money and stuff I used to make out of it all. So
that's what I'm trying to get to.
So I shot, like, my first check from Slam was like the center spread with Denny Way, and then the cover with Troy Mahoney. I think I got like $250 for it or something, you know, like.
Wow. One episode, one issue.
That's kind of crap, I reckon, for shooting a cover and a center spread, like.
And that was 1992, right?
At the beginning of 92.
So it wasn't lucrative and you had to hustle.
But how's this, Shannon? Like, so Slam work, they didn't pay much back then for like photos or whatever. Australian Skateboarding paid like really well for photos, and if you look back at those early magazines, like, I shot the entire magazine. Yeah. So I'd make I was making about $3,000 every issue. So that was coming out.
That's monthly?
Coming out every second month.
I was bi-monthly.
And it was, and then so it was me, it was bi-monthly, yeah. So it was 6 issues a year. But still, for like back in that era, like, that's $18,000 a year. And then I shot other things like as well, like I did Inside Sport articles, Juice articles. I shot for cycling magazines. I shot for like other magazines that publishing company produced. So I worked
freelance. Oh, okay. Oh, so they're under the same publisher.
It was all freelance, yeah.
But under the same publisher, so the work came easy.
Easy. Like,
because they're like, we've got a guy. They're all in the office talking.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, they had like they would have. So the skateboarding magazine was in this big office that had the snowboarding magazine, or they called it the. I can't remember. It was like a Smelly Dan or something. It was just like, and they had like Tracks magazine was in there as well, and I think there was a bodyboard magazine. I think everyone hated the bodyboard magazine editor. But yeah, I think they called it the Pit or something. But yeah, and then they had like cycling magazines and things like that. But they had this. There's this great guy called Tony Nolan. Tony fucking Nolan.
I remember Tony Nolan.
Yeah, he was like the only photographer that they employed. And then Tony loved me, so he got me work with all the other
so you were doing
magazines.
All right.
Yeah, I did. Like, I was more or less like just like made money. Like,
Did you get much creative input in terms of layout and stuff like that? Was that contentious at times?
With the first, I remember like the first proper, like the first issue, like they released, like the very first issue they did, like there was a photo of Dom Kekic on the front. I think he's doing a switch 180 over like a bench shot in Melbourne.
That's correct.
And Jesse Featherstone shot that picture. Like I only had a few pics like in the first issue, like, but they did like a little like photographer profile on me. Like I met Dave Mock was taking photos.
Legend.
For the first issue, and I met Dave Mock through Mock. Yeah. Anyway, it all just fell into place. Let me think what I'm getting at here. With all of this. Damn, there wasn't many photographers, and basically, like, if I could shoot the whole magazine really and make, yeah.
Were you sending? So, say if the photos that you had published in Australian Skateboarding,
Yeah.
the B sides, things that weren't accepted, would you shop those around? Like, would you send stuff to Crank, for example, to see if they'd publish it for a little bit extra money as well?
I used to do that with Transworld. So, like, what I'd do, like, I'd save, like. So I remember like some of the interviews, yeah. I did it with I didn't so much like, I wouldn't really send my photos to Slam Magazine and Crank. I sent my photos to Crank before Australian Skateboarding started, but I sort of just stayed loyal to them. Like, not that they cared, but that's just sort of how I am anyway. Like, yeah.
That Dave Rocks photo in issue 1 with the Nosemont slide where he's got the camo shirt on.
Oh, that was the one I was just talking about. That was that little, like, they did like the little photographer thing on the first issue, which
one of my favourite photos ever.
Yeah, it's just
So let's talk about like the gradual exit out of it into other projects and moving on from, earning an income that way.
Yeah.
What was next from there? How did it sort of start to wind down or end? Did you lose interest or just?
No, I didn't. Like, I always wanted to be like work in journalism. Like, I always wanted to always wanted to get like a cadetship or something like and become like a news photographer. So that's yeah. And then let me think about this. When I finished my master's, like when I finished up with university, like I just left the course. It was almost like it was like being reborn again. Just weight just came off my back. This whole thing I didn't want to do. Like I'd had enough of psychology. I certainly didn't want to work in the clinical setting. And I'd suffered enough, like with my studies, like sacrificing photography and things like that, because I was having to write essays and research all the time. I didn't have time to do any of that. So it was just like, that's all gone, bang, And then, I just went full bore with photography now. I had time to be able to go and shoot it and so I'm just thinking like some of the photos that I took around this period, I remember I went on a lot of missions with like Steve Tierney, Davo, would go Tyzo would come out with us. Do you ever remember some photos taken at Walsh Bay, like with the Sydney Harbour Bridge in the background? There are these long finger container. There's these. It's down near Pier 1, and it's Pier 2, Pier 3, Pier 4. Like
they used to have warehouses on
warehouses. They call them. Yeah, they're called like finger wharfs, longshore wharfs, or whatever. Yeah, we like around this period of time. We'd go on little missions, and I wouldn't say we wouldn't break into them. We would just get into these places, and there was like a photo of Davo doing a backside nose. It might be. It's a backside nose grind, backside 180 out icon, and you can see in the heart. And basically, we shot it on one of those longshore wharfs with the doors wide open, and the harbour bridge is in the background. But it just seemed like, I don't know. I shot Davo's interview for Australian Skateboarding at that time. I just remember my photos. Like it seemed like they really started to like I don't know, my creativity just started to blossom. Like, yeah, really
Blossom.
blossom or bloom, I guess. I don't know. Like, yeah, really started to get, I don't know.
When did you start working for Fairfax Media then?
So that was not, I started working for Fairfax in 1999. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, so I basically just decided that, I don't know, that, just started, I had like enough, to get a portfolio. I'd shot like all these different sports and like portrait pictures and things like that. And
Were you feeling like, I've got to get more of like a real job?
yeah, I wanted to be like a journalist for
Like an adult job?
Not like that. Like it just, there was a bit of pressure like that from my parents, and my parents wanted me to have a full-time job. And they didn't understand, like back in this era, like you had like a full, it's different era, you know what I mean? Like, so they were just worried about everything that I would have been doing, not understanding that you can make money out of doing things that way or whatever. But that aside, like I kind of saw myself as having done like my apprenticeship, like as a photographer through the ranks of skateboarding. Like that's a pretty hard apprenticeship to do as well. Not everything's given to you. You got to be self-motivated. You're teaching yourself how to do everything. You start out buying everything for yourself. And that's skateboarding. Like it was a pretty authentic approach to journalism.
And did it really help you at Fairfax?
Oh yeah. So like when I started up, like just started up as I started out as like a B grade casual photographer, which I didn't even like have to do an apprenticeship, or I was probably like better than the photographers that had been there for like 10 years.
No way.
And my level of skill was like was maybe like,
So cool.
I don't know, it's just like more skill. I knew how to, like, it's funny, like when you're working in magazines and things like that, like you only use slide film. When you use slide film, like you got like, you'd call it tolerance these days, like exposure tolerance. Well, with slide film, there's only a thin margin to overexpose it and a thin margin for underexposing it. If you go over that margin, the photo's just shit house. Like that's kind of, you become pretty good with your exposures and things like that, like for using slide film and using it all the time, especially like expensive slide film that's like $20 a roll, which is like Fuji Velvia. And by the time I worked there, so when I started working in newspapers, like I was really good with lighting and my exposures, and they're the basics for taking a good photo, and then your composition and things like that. Like if you don't have good exposure, regardless of your composition, it's still going to look terrible.
It can't be fixed up in post-production?
Not.
It couldn't be as easily fixed?
Like post? How's this? Like, it's funny, like, so when I started working at Fairfax newspapers, like I worked on the community newspapers, and they were still predominantly black and white newspapers, but they had colour pages in the newspapers, which meant that everything was shot with colour film, because they didn't know what pages were going to be allocated, like the stories were going to be allocated in black and white or in colour. So the darkroom days of the newspaper, when I started working at newspapers, were gone. Like they didn't have like the black and white printing and all that stuff. That had only just finished like a year or two before I started in newspapers. So I started like 1999. It still was film cameras and using Kodak scanners. So everything was shot with colour film and then scanned. So there was a little bit of like Photoshop, like I was using Photoshop back then. Yeah. So you could do things like lighten up, like faces and things like that, like where flashes kind of hadn't exposed them properly and stuff like that. That you could do with the newspaper. With skateboarding, you couldn't, there was no adjustment to nothing. So how you shot that on the slide is how it came out in the magazine.
So when you were shooting a skater, for example, because I've seen this in real time, when a skater's battling a trick and you're trying to get a sequence, and you're burning through roll after roll, Like that's coming out of your pocket,
Yeah,
right?
that's it. Yeah, yeah. You can hide like a couple of rolls because I'd only get like a budget of like
Yeah, what was your
20
budget?
rolls of like 20 rolls of film for a whole issue, which is
For a whole issue.
so actually to do the maths on that. So 5 of those would have been black and white. So that's like 150 frames of black and white. Like you could probably burn like 50 frame sequence now of how fast the motor drives work. They go like 10 frames a sec now or whatever. The motor drives were only slow then. They're like 5 frames a second, like 5.5
So
frames a
like
second.
were you getting like selective with who you'd shoot with based on their consistency and their ability to get the job done quick?
Yeah, I was pretty apprehensive about like
Were you?
shooting sequences unless like I could. Yeah, I would like. I remember with Morgan because like in photography in Australia everything's really expensive. So like in America, like a roll of film, like Kodak roll of film, would be like $3. Over here, that roll of film's like $12. Like it's different. Like, well, maybe not that. It might have been like $6, and it was like $2 over there. Like
Yeah, right.
black and white. A roll of slide film was different. A roll of slide film in America would be like $5. That'd be like for a roll of Velvia. Over here, it was $20. Yeah, so I wasn't going to shoot. I wasn't going to be shooting color sequences. Full stop. Because it's like at least I got 36 chances of getting a single frame. My flash is going off. Like that, I'm going to waste that film. Like shooting a sequence ain't going to work, mate. Yeah, you're stressing big time. Because I'd have like they didn't give me a lot of film. Like I did get film to shoot for the magazine, and I also would buy some of my own film. But yeah, I wasn't prepared to like.
There must have been moments when it created serious tension between you and the skater you were shooting.
Yes.
So they're getting close, but you haven't got the shot yet. But you're running out of film, and they want to keip going, and you're like, "I'm out of film."
Yeah, there's a point where you sort of got. I remember like I was with Morgan Campbell, and we were in Western, so we were in WA, and do you know? I think it's one of the beaches. It's like Cottesloe, and it's got the transitioned. It might be Cottesloe. It might not be Cottesloe. But it might be. So it's in the Perth area, but it's one of the beaches there, and there's like a life-saving club or something, and it's got a roof with transitions on the top. And I was shooting some pics with Morgan, like we were trying to do, like he might have been, I can't really remember what he was doing. He might have just been like a big backside ollie or something like that over the hip. It had a hip as well on that roof.
Crazy.
So, yeah. Do you know the pics, Jim?
Yeah. I know the spot,
Jim knows, man.
I know the spot. I couldn't. I've never been to WA, but I know. I know it from magazines. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But I remember being with Morgan on the rooftop there, and I was trying to shoot a sequence of him, and he just kept like kicking his board away and bailing, and I was just burning the film. And I remember like getting the roll of film out of my camera and throwing it at him. I was that pissed off, burning film. And Morgan, like, he remembers that.
Because you knew you didn't have a single good shot in the whole roll.
Oh, let him start like throw film at like get one place going. There's no point in processing it.
Yeah, like what if you got a skater who like they can do it, but they're bailing all the time. You're like, why are you fucking bailing? Like, would you go through moments like that? Like, stop bailing.
Yeah, you try and be nice, and you think, yeah, no, you can do it. And we'll try and get the next one, but there is a breaking point.
How did he react? How did he react to that when you threw the film at him? How did he react?
Oh, he would have got pissed at me. I know he's like, because he's mentioned it to me before. He goes, yeah, Aaron can get pretty gnarly when you're shooting sequences and whatever. I start flipping out at people. So good. I think it's like I probably can't see it myself, but there's probably a monster behind the camera front. Yeah.
I get it. Oh, that's interesting.
But yeah, I have done that throw roll film at Morgan Campbell. Maybe a couple of rolls that day.
Thanks for admitting it.
Sorry, Morgan. I really am.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, just when you started at Fairfax, you were saying earlier in the night that like, you just found shooting that kind of photography for newspapers just like a breeze and easy.
Yeah.
Did you progress up the ranks quickly in the newspaper and start to solidify yourself there as one of their premier photographers?
Kind of like, so when I worked at Fairfax, I only worked there for a year. And
Okay.
so what happened when I worked there was they didn't have, it was Fairfax Community Newspapers, so they had about a dozen like suburban newspapers like sprawled throughout Sydney. Like they had papers like all throughout the western suburbs. Like they had them in Liverpool, they had them in Fairfield, they had them in Castle Hill, had like Cronulla, Hurstville, like the leader. They had So I worked on all of those newspapers. Like I didn't work like typically how it worked back then was like they employed like 2 photographers per newspaper, but they couldn't give me like a full-time job to work on one newspaper. So I worked as their casual, like on all of their newspapers. But so everyone. No, and the funny thing was like so when I'd go and work on a particular newspaper for a couple of weeks, like it was I kind of had a reputation like that, like that the photographer that was coming in was a pretty good photographer. Yeah.
Cool,
so
man.
like I kind of was, they loved me at Fairfax, and then I got headhunted for another job, which was working at a company called Federal Publishing Courier. So they did like the Wentworth Courier and like the Inner Western Courier and Southern Courier, like some suburban newspapers, like in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. And then, like they didn't really appreciate me too much, like which was a little bit. But it's a bit of a shame because like Fairfax, like I would have just climbed through the ranks there.
Yeah, interesting. Why did you leave Fairfax for them?
Because like a full-time job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, got headhunted for a job.
Oh, they headhunted you.
Yeah.
But you didn't feel appreciated by them.
Oh,
You don't have to.
Oh no, I don't mind. Like it's all ages ago. So like what happened was like when you work in like these industries, like so the boss of the editor-in-chief, like the chief editor of like Fairfax Community Newspapers, like he jumped ship and went over to this other company called Federal Publishing Courier. So, and then he started bringing people from Fairfax over. So he brought me over,
Gotcha.
like based on like he would have like sussed out like the chief photographer at Fairfax and asked like sourced me from there basically. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Hey, before we started the podcast, you were talking to Jim and I about Matt Mumford cover shot for Transworld.
Yeah.
And you showed us this amazing photo you took of Matt.
Doing the tail slide.
Tail
down
slide
down
at
the handrail. It's
the
like a-
Redfern Suicide Towers, was it?
No, it was like some.
No, it wasn't Suicide
It's
Towers.
like a 10-stair rail, like in Hurstville or somewhere.
Yeah,
it was,
and you're telling us the story, and I was like, don't tell us because we want to hear it. Tell us on the podcast. But can you just like sort of reiterate what was going on?
yeah.
So it was a tour, and
So it was Skin Phillips. He was like deputy editor of Transworld at the time, and like their chief photographer. He came out to Australia to like shoot photos. I think it was for Matt Mumford's interview. So Matt Mumford, like he was living in America at the time, he came out with Skin and like he was skating for Zero, and he also brought Adrian Lopez with him. So the other two Zero guys. And I know Matt Mumford really well because I'd photographed like his interview for Australian skateboarding, and I knew Skin fairly well too because like I'd met him through Dave Swift, who I'd met through again like Matt Mumford. Matt Mumford opened the doors through Matt Mumford I'd met like these people at Transworld, which are huge in skateboarding and photography. But yeah, so Matt's come out to Australia and he's like, and I'd been good friends with Matt already anyway, and he's contacted me and like basically like he wants to shoot. Him and Adrian Lopez wanted to shoot photos with Skin, and they just wanted me to sort of show them around, take them to some spots, and they wanted to hang out with me or whatever as well. But I think they just wanted to like go to spots and shoot pics and stuff like that, and I could do that with them. So I met up with I met up with him. Like, I must have been at work. Like, so I would have been like working at like the newspaper all day, and then I'd say I've met up with them because that newspaper, the leader that I principally worked out of, was based in Hurstville. So either way, we've met up and we've decided to go out and shoot some pics, and like Skin's the main photographer there. It's his gig, not mine. Like,
He's been flown out from America for this.
For this, yeah. But I asked him, I'm like, "Oh, do you mind like if I shoot like some art pics? Like I'm just working on like an art project, which is like a book that I published." The art project was meant to be like an exhibition, like in 1999, but it turned out to be a book that I published only 2 years ago. So, which pretty long project, but so Skin's like, yeah, it's cool, you can shoot these art pics or whatever. He didn't mind me being in the background, like taking the same photo basically. And then like on another shoot, like we took Adrian Lopez, like again the three of us, like the four of us, so Skin, Mumford, and Adrian Lopez. Like we went to Suicide Towers and shot like Skin and I, but more Skin. Shot the photo of Adrian doing the frontside board slide
While you poached
the
another angle.
Yeah, I poached the shot like from behind the bushes, like literally like the frame that I've got, it's got bushes and everything, and it's like those porn photos where they're shooting from behind the bushes. Like mine's like that, but Adrian Lopez like front boarding, doing the rail.
Was it a better photo though?
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, because his was like saturated colour, fisheye, flash blowout photo. His was this typical sort of like fisheye photo of the day. Skin photo.
I love that you're like backing yourself. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, mine was kind of a cool photo. Like I've
sick.
shot, I would have only had, because back then I would have just rocked, like I had like, they were metal body cameras, like I would have used like an FE2, so they're not like sophisticated looking cameras like now, and I would have just had like a 50mm lens on it.
Okay.
But yeah, so which is like just a basic lens that comes with the camera when you buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my photo's really good, but...
So did you just like see the angle and went, you know what, that angle's sick, I'm just going to maybe snap a couple?
Yeah, but it's not also like not too many people could, like in Sydney were frontside board sliding that rail, you know what I mean, as well. It's like an opportunity too. But I didn't mean it in that way using, it's just funny I used that word opportunity. But I shot like in my right state of mind, it was for my art exhibition. But anyway, it's somewhere along the lines, the photos, like Steve Tini and Matt Coit have seen them at Australian skateboarding. Like it would have been me. I would have gone in and go, check this out. I got these cool photos that I took with Skin and with Matt and Adrian Lopez. So these photos are not really meant to be published. So the one of Matt Mumford doing the tail slide down that rail in Hurstville gets used on the cover of Australian Skateboarding. And the same magazine, the centre spread, is Adrian Lopez doing the frontside board slide down the handrail on Suicide Towers. And so this has all come out. That magazine came out, I think I got the magazine on maybe a Wednesday or something, or I can't remember what day. It was like a couple of days. I think I was talking to we were talking about this earlier. I think I said like a week later I went over to Europe for a month to photograph the World Cup skateboarding. It might have only been a couple of days after that magazine came out, but either way, I was real proud and took it over. And Transworld's got a subscription to it. So they've already received the magazine. Skin's already seen the cover. So I rock up and I'm in Prague and I see Mumford and I see Adrian Lopez and they're like my buddies, right? I saw you in Sydney a couple of weeks ago.
So they weren't phased.
Even Mumford was pissed at me. They're all super pissed at me.
So you got bad vibes when you seen them. They're like, what?
Yeah, Mumford and Matt's like, Aaron, you should know better, because Matt Mumford, he really likes me, but he was just disappointed in me. Adrian Lopez was pretty pissed at me because the thing with that photo was Adrian Lopez's front board was used like it might have been an Osiris ad. It was a shoe ad.
Circa.
Circa, man. It's a bad thing to do, like especially a shoe ad. It was a double-page spread advertisement. It wasn't like a little picture. It was a two-page ad. Yeah.
And was Skin's version of Mumford's photo published in Transworld as well?
The tail slide, they probably pulled that one at the last minute because it ended up on the cover of Australian Skateboarding. It was a disaster. This whole story's a disaster.
Wait up. Who was the editor-in-chief at the time? Gordo?
Matt Coit was.
Okay, so he knew
He became the editor of Rolling Stone.
No shit.
FHM and then Rolling Stone. Like, I don't think he cared too much about skateboarding.
But did he know the scenario?
But he was a cool guy.
So he knew the scenario. So he knew when you submitted those photos what was going on, and you just went, whatever, let's just go. Let's run them. So you can't.
Yeah, there was some sort of like
I'm trying to bail you out here.
Yeah, I don't know. There was some breakdown in communication that might have been on my part. But man, I reckon like I was just so like, I also smoked a lot back then, just in the green room all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I don't think
I forgot you're a stoner.
Yeah.
Is that phase of your life over, or you still get phased?
Well,
Faded.
That phase ended for a long time, and then like more like with the medicinal, like medicinals, it's a whole different thing now. So I do smoke up, and certainly not like I used to. No way. No way.
For medicinal reasons. With medicinal.
This is. I don't think I really have anything wrong with me, but yeah, it is for medicinal purposes.
You have a prescription?
Yes.
Hey, I think like if that's the loophole that we have to make cannabis legal. I mean, I don't smoke marijuana, but I do think it should be legal.
I agree.
I can't believe it's not legal. So that's great that this is how they have to do it, and it's accessible now for people that actually need it.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's got amazing medicinal qualities. It really does. Just don't abuse it.
Yes. No, I think like. Yeah. I never thought we would be living like in this era where I was watching the Dolphins football game at the start of the year, and
what a shit name for a rugby league team.
Alternaleaf is the major sponsor. Seeing Alternaleaf, like on there all around, like because they use those digital billboards. Yeah. So there was, and then like the average punter out there probably doesn't know what Alternaleaf is, and it's medicinal.
You're like that's my hookup.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, let's have a toilet break. This is a common podcast problem.
Okay. So yeah, coming back, I was just talking about like how I was just saying telling Shannon how I also went to America when I was 18. So it was my first year out of high school. It was that same year, like I took that photo of Danny Way doing like the Japan Air at Darling Harbour. Like he came out with Chris Miller for the
amazing.
And then when I shot the centre spread with Slam, it was like my first published photos and things like that. But
we want to talk about that too. Remind me.
Yeah, so I went over to America for like 2 or 3 months, like when I was 18, and yeah, sort of just came back like sort of a different person, like something had sort of changed in kind of like just I don't know. It's like that sort of like you'd pin it down to like sort of like when you're going through adolescence or whatever, and your temperament and things like that change. Yeah.
Well, your eyes had been open to the.
I don't know, but I didn't see anything too confrontational in America. America's a completely like we went to like San Diego, LA, San Francisco. Saw things like in SF, like you'd see I'd never seen like poverty before. Again, like it was like the recession of the early 90s and things like that. But I don't know. Just and as I was saying, like I was just talking about saying that like when I was in year 10, like a couple of kids I went to school with, like I was pretty good friends with one of these kids. It was like because I used to get called Booger, which was my nickname. But anyway, these 2 kids like that I went to school with jumped off the Harbour Bridge. So we all I went into school on Monday morning and like that. We had like it's just I don't know. I think things like that can sort of affect you like in life. And
was one of the kids the one that came up with the nickname Booger?
Yeah, that was Matthew Johnson, yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know.
It's stuck with you.
Yeah, that's where that, yeah. So I don't mind, like, if someone like Glenn Scott or, you know, like those guys, then, like, it's endearing to hear them say it, you know what I mean? Because, like, I went to school with those guys.
It deeply affected you for many years, you think? Or still affects you, that tragic incident?
It doesn't affect me anymore, but, like, I just think it must have done something to my confidence. It's done something, you know, like, and you...
Like reduce your confidence?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I'd sort of relate that to why I stopped skating for a year and tried to, you know, sort of wanted to go to university, things like that. Like, it sort of, you know, like, yeah, just did.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago, though. We're talking like 35 years ago or something like that.
Thanks
like
for sharing
30 years ago, yeah.
Thanks for sharing it. And so you just mentioned your first published photos.
Yeah.
Yeah, like tell us that story because I know there's a story. So you submitted some photos to Slam for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what happened?
So with the Danny Way and the...
Yeah, well, they were the first photos you ever submitted.
Yeah.
Photo of Danny Way skating at Darling Harbour.
Yeah, so the first photos I ever submitted were... It was the Denny Way, Chris Miller, like Tarson Ben Pappas demos down at Darling Harbour. And also around the same time I went to Melbourne they have like a competition at Perun, like it was a vert and street comp, and Rudy Johnson came out for blind. That's right, yeah, Rudy Johnson came out. And so, and I shot like pics of, again, it would have been Tarson Ben. It would have been Ryan Denerez as well there. There were people like that were skating. And I shot a photo of Troy O'Mahony doing like a paddler's backside disaster, like on the vert ramp, and that was used on the cover of the Slam magazine. And then that photo of Denny Way doing a Japan Air at Darling Harbour was used in the centre spread. So they were the first photos I ever had published.
And it was the first time you'd submitted to a mag?
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. What a good start.
Yeah, it was funny because that one, like, if you have a look back at the gym, you'd notice, like,
it was the first issue of Slam I ever bought too.
But
No way.
There was, like, in the Slam that came out before that, there's a photo that Scott Needham took at the Darling Harbour demo. I think of maybe like it might be like Danny Way doing a Varial 540 or something like that. Either way, like, but it's funny. But my photo still got published, like on the cover, on the centre spread of the magazine, like the following issue.
Yeah.
Well, things weren't as instantaneous back then either. You know, like if you had a roll of film and it was, you know, some of the photos were from the year before. You know, including in Thrasher and Transworld and stuff like that, and things were changing so quickly. So boards would look different. You know, you would see photos.
Yeah.
You know, you look at Questionable Video and Danny Way is still writing blind and H Street boards in some of the footage.
Is it,
you know,
Crazy.
I'll give the perspective of like how the state of magazines as well, and you would know this is like they'll half like if you picked up a Slam back like that Danny Way issue that. The one with Danny Way, the one I'm talking about with the Troy Mahoney on the cover and Danny Way, a lot of the photos in that would have been submitted by American photographers as well. Like half the issue would have been like photos by Tobin Yealand and Dave Swift and
Sherman,
yeah, exactly, yeah. There was just no photographers in Australia. Yeah.
I'm actually sitting here thinking, man, I wish I got into photography in that time. You know what? You said something to me once. I'll never forget. I went on a shoot with you when you shot the cover of my friend Johnny O'Connor from Vaucluse.
Yeah, he's champion.
Shout out to Johnny. I love, man, he's such a kind soul. He was such a
and
good
his
dude.
brother's champion as well.
He's a twin, yeah. Those guys, yeah. He actually reached out to me recently. Anyway, and he shot a cover shot of him doing, like a frontside, blindside transfer on this flat rail. And I was watching you and I was talking and I think I said something like, oh, what about this angle? And you like, hey, Shannon, I think you've got a really good eye for photography because like I was like putting my 2 cents in. And I don't know if you're being like just like, you know, nice or I was pissing you off and you just wanted to get rid of me anyway. I was like, You're like, yeah. And I was like, thanks,
Did
Aaron.
Did you sort of
that.
like?
You said that.
Did you point something out and like?
Yeah, so
would
I
that be not bad from shot over? Did I go over and like
Something like that,
sit
yeah.
over and try and shoot a photo from where you
Something like that.
from what you
and
suggested?
you were like, yeah. And you're like, yeah, you've got a good eye for this, don't you? And I was like, oh, yeah, thanks, man. And I remember just going, in hindsight,
Yeah,
I was
you
like,
probably
was he
do
just
have a
being
good
nice, or was
nah.
that like, he's probably thinking, don't tell me to do my fucking job.
Nah, I wouldn't have. I would have probably.
Nah.
I think I would have been genuine saying that. I can't remember. Hey, I remember like. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I remember shooting vaguely. I
remember shooting that cover. Are you okay?
Yeah. I remember shooting the cover. Like, was that University of New South Wales? Was it? Yeah.
Ed Randwick, yeah.
Yeah, I know the exact picture. Like, it was that little. It was like a low rail. It was easy to get onto, and then
Dropped off
it
a
dropped
bit
off.
higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, do you, like, I guess, like, we've been talking for, I don't know, like, between an hour and a half, 2 hours, but, you know, when you do reflect on all of that period of your life, because so much has happened before then and after then, you know, would you say that it was a good time in your life overall?
Yeah.
Or is there painful memories associated with it?
No, like skateboarding photography is like they're my best memories of photography. There's no doubt about that. Like, yeah, that whole period, that being exposed to, like, even before I picked up a camera, like looking at like Sturt's photos, or you know, like Spike Jones photos, Grant Britton's photos, Bryce Knight's photos, Luke Ogden's photos, Steve Sherman. You know, you just all of those names. You never forget those names because they just took wonderful pictures and they kind of exposed you to something that forever changes your life. And skateboarding photography is just so diverse and so creative. Like, I couldn't have. Yeah, I feel so fortunate to come from that, from skateboarding.
So the book you've made, the first, like, you've given me this beautiful gift tonight. And I'll cherish it forever. I literally will. It's called Backlight in the Grain. Yeah.
Angels of Skateboarding.
Angels of Skateboarding. So do you feel like when you created this, it's an ode to that period of your life?
Yes. Yeah,
It
that
is.
was
So
kind
this
of
is-
that's my like PhD, and that's like my master's really. Like,
Okay.
I didn't come out with a master's project like in the actual psychology course, but then that would be my equivalent there.
So this is
I generated everything into that.
This is kind of like symbolic of the stamp of that time stamp.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. All
Fuck yeah,
encapsulating.
Amazing.
It's sort of
Yeah. Emotional when you look at it sometimes? Was the process of creating it emotional?
Process of creating it was like, I can't. It's just something I'm really like. It's a body of work that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Kind of like it wasn't driven by anything. Like most of the photograph, like the cover photograph on the book of Kai Stanley Ollie in the pole with Davo on the background, that was used on the cover of a magazine. And then there's like, it was on the cover of one of those Australian skateboarding poster issues. But pretty much like none of the photo, like about 95% of the photos in that book have never been published because they were shot with the intention of the art project that I was talking about a little bit early.
Wow.
When I poached skin, you know, like a Suicide Towers of Adrian Lopez doing that front board and all that. Like, I had in mind.
So you were sitting on this stuff.
I didn't have the focal point wasn't like, it wasn't meant to be a book at that time. Like, there was a photographer called Lewis Morley. He took a famous photograph like of this beautiful woman naked, like with her elbows leaning over the back of a chair. Like, she's involved in like the Profumo affair. So she was like an escort that was involved, like an alleged affair like a Russian diplomat had with her. Like, it was big news. So Lewis Morley like took that photograph of her. So it's a really well known photo. I was meant to have so. At the time, like this is in the 90s, Lewis Morley was still alive and he had an art gallery in Annandale, and I took some skateboarding photos in. This is all before, like, I'd only, you know, like, this was the conception of shooting this
So
like black and white art project. And he said he pulled aside I had like a whole bunch of photos of like street people in Sydney and buildings, and I had some skating ones. And he pulled the skating photos out. And he goes, "These are fantastic. Come back with like a box full of prints, and we'll do an exhibition." And I never went back. And he passed away like about 10 years ago, and then it just ended up becoming the book, basically, that one of Pat Duffy.
you know, I like it's hard because this is an audio recording. It's just hard to
we're looking at the book at the same time.
It's hard for people to really understand how insanely. Like the moments you've captured are just so unique. And I guess the big question I had, so that cover shot, you chose that photo of Kai Stanley to be the cover of this book. But if you go through the book, there's so many amazing photos. Why did you choose that photo to be the cover?
Yeah.
What stood out for you? And what drove that decision?
Because the photo, it's probably the best photo in the book, like that Ollie.
In terms of the difficulty?
Yeah, in terms of difficulty, like to be able to ollie a pole like with that gap like that, like not many people would ever be able to do that. Mm-hmm. Kai Stanley, like he would be the most he may just be the most gifted skateboarder I ever.
What about Kyle Nusky? Yeah. Oh wow.
Kai Stanley, he guy's incredible. And then it's got Davo in the background, and he's holding a long neck, and just
Billy Harris. Shout out, no negative.
Yeah, Crow ride.
yeah, but I mean, yeah. So okay, so you picked it because you just think it was just such a difficult thing to do. But I mean, just from an art perspective, I feel like there's more artistic photos in here.
Yeah. I think I probably just I don't know. I just love that photo of Kai.
Loved it.
Yeah, and I didn't have too many. I just think I have Davo in the background, and I also remember when we went out and shot that photo that day. Steve Tinney's also there, but he's behind me holding a slave or something. Slaves keep coming back into it. There's always a slave.
I want to talk about slaves.
I remember I was shooting pics, and I'd grab someone and say, "Hey man, can you just hold this flash for a few minutes while I shoot this pic?" And half an hour later, they're still holding the flash with a sore arm.
Chima at Prudential.
Yeah.
Oh my God! And he would have been looks like maybe 12 or 13.
He wouldn't have been I reckon that was
younger.
Yeah, he's only a little kid. He wouldn't even be shop sponsored or nothing.
Yeah, I wonder if he was ollieing the Prudential double set. There.
Nah, he was trying to 50 that ledge.
Did you ever ollie the Prudential double set?
No.
I ollied it. Me and my friend Duncan Guzef ollied it one night.
So, do you
remember Duncan, Cam's brother?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So you only ever ollied it once?
Just ollied it, yeah.
See, I never ollied it, and I could ollie it. I probably could have done 1/8. No. I don't know why. Just kind of and I ollied down 10 stairs and stuff like that. But I don't know why I didn't.
Just a straight ollie.
I don't know. Never did it. It's pathetic.
No, it's not. Yeah. I mean, Alex Smith was the first to kickflip it, wasn't he?
Yeah, he would have been the first.
Jim, fact checker.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Oh, yes. It's amazing having Jim here.
And switch 360 flip it. I saw him.
Did he switch trade it?
Man, I don't know if he'll ever finish. I was there. I've watched him, and he was landing it. Land, roll, fall off. Land, roll. And this is 1992 or something, some ridiculous time period. Maybe I'm exaggerating there. Might have been 93, maybe, pretty early in the.
Around the same time that he 360 flipped into the pit, that same
around
era.
that time, yeah. And he was gnarly, and he'd also just do a switch 5-0 on that Prudential, the ledge around the corner.
Yeah.
Switch 5-0 on it. I remember him. Alex Smith had real big calf muscles. Yeah,
right.
Guys, any of you guys remember that?
No.
Yeah, people would know that would.
Yeah,
they were tennis balls coming out of his back of his legs.
Yeah,
he was gnarly. Just switch 5-0.
He was definitely ahead of the game.
Yeah.
There's always that person every generation who's just had that extra X factor. He had an X factor.
Yeah.
What other skaters that you've worked with have had, you just see the X factor? I mean, we just looked at Chima. Chima had an X factor about him. Davo had an X factor
Yeah,
about
Davo
him.
for sure. Everything he did.
You know, who else would you...
Would you? I was thinking about this, like Brett Margaritas.
Yeah.
Like he can't do anything wrong on a skateboard. Yeah, and that's that I don't know. It's just
They have something different, right?
They have something different. Yeah, and even his approach to skating and his understanding of it. It's sort of like because we're all sort of cut from skateboarding, but yeah, I noticed with him he was like a higher level with it. Yeah, because I used to live with Brett. He lived with me and him, like lived together in Petersham.
Yeah. I feel like you speak of Brett quite fondly.
Yeah, because he's wonderful.
You consider him as someone that's been very integral in your life?
Yeah, he did heaps for me. Like when I was kind of Brett's I don't know how to. Yeah, he's how can I say, like he's very stable, Brett. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah,
it's like Jim in my life. He's stable.
Yeah, he's
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You're the same back to me too.
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I've never been regarded as stable ever. Thank you. I'll take that.
But what I was going to say, so coming back to like there's certain skateboarders like Blake Convey in Canberra, like Kaza in Queensland, Davo, like here. I'm thinking like then there's like Dom Kekic, like in
Dom
North. There's
Kekic.
certain people and they're just brilliant at skateboarding.
Dave Bodner.
Yep, spin. I always thought he was incredible.
Actually, Jake Brown. I remember the first time I seen Jake Brown skate a vert ramp. It was a skateboard board ramp. They set it up in Fairy Meadow in Wollongong. Jake Brown turned up, and he was a little young kid, and just the way he was floating, and popping his airs and like actually ollieing into him, and just it was like X Factor.
Wow, you remember?
Different.
I used to skate Fairfield. Like we used to go like
Fairfield mini ramps. Yeah.
Fairfield. So I vividly remember like I would have been like, because I'm like a good 2 or 3 years older than like Spin. I'm probably a couple of years older than Spin and Jake, but I was like in year 11 in high school going there like on a Thursday night to skate like out at Fairfield, and Spin and Jake were there, and they were like little kids. They might even be like they might even be like 4 years younger than me. I can't. But either way, they were just these little skate rats.
And Jake's from Cronulla, right?
Yeah, this is out, and they're out at Fairfield.
Because that's what you did.
At 10 o'clock, like on a Thursday night or something, you know? But I just remember, like, how incredible, like, they were both, like, I always thought, like, Spin was like, brilliant. He was incredible.
Dude, and stylish.
Yeah.
They both had natural style. Hey?
And Jake,
You shot that great photo of Jake Brown dreads out with the superstars on. It's like a indie nose bone or something like that.
The frontside bone air.
Yeah, frontside bone air. Yeah.
Yeah, at Bondi on the old vert ramp.
Yeah, and he just looks like, he looks like somebody from like a Cypress Hill video clip or something. It was one of the freshest photos in my mind.
Yeah, he might have been like in the, because he was sort of, I never really hung out with Jake, like, but I've known him for a long time, like, again, because from the Fairfield days and things like that, but he might have been in the rave scene back then.
Yeah.
It was pretty hardcore. Yeah.
Oh, man, how spectacular, dude.
But they'll just, the two of those, I always like tell people, like, because then what Jake went on to achieve in skateboarding, like, everyone around the world saw him do that big air that he bottomed out. Yeah. Like
the mega plug.
The mega plug, yes. But he just accomplished so much. And then it's funny how like, and then I think of Spin's brilliance on the skateboard as well.
Yeah. It's funny. I was talking to someone about Jake's mega plug. Like, I mean, it's good to see him get this global recognition, but in the weirdest way, like he's one almost of the first, unfortunate because like that kind of was what he got recognised for on a large scale.
Yeah.
Because it was so much more than that, like, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but he sort of became a household name because of that one slam.
He's like the first, when I think about it, like that was like one of the first big YouTube sort of kind of where everyone, went viral, yeah.
It was such a viral moment, though. I mean, I still look at that and just like, I can't believe what I'm seeing.
Big slam. But,
and the fact he survived and walked away.
But every now and then, like I watch some of the I don't really watch any of it. I just capture glimpses of it, and it'll be Jake doing something gnarly. Like, oh, did he do the 720 ollie? Yeah, he did that 720 ollie over a gap, didn't he?
Over the mega gap.
Like, he's gnarly.
Absolutely.
Isn't that what he did
He was one of the
before he plugged
pioneers.
He did a 720.
720 ollie.
Before he hit the quarter and plugged it, right? That's what he did. Insane.
But yeah, it's just catch. So I guess someone on one hand, like he's recognised for plugging that big air, but he also did a 720 ollie across a mega gap.
The commentary's epic because Tony Hawk's commentating and everyone's like, oh my God, he's almost died. And the first thing Tony Hawk says in the commentary is like, I can't believe he landed that 720. Like, he didn't even refer to the big slam. He was still stoked on the 720. Yeah. So good. Yeah, but everyone else was like, oh my God, he almost died. Yeah, anyway, in stark contrast to that book that I was just holding, I'm holding another book that you've made, and it's called Starting Blocks, The Ocean Baths of Newcastle and Merryweather by Aaron Brown. Now, I mean, if I hold these two books together, like, what a contrast.
Yeah.
You know, so let's talk about the backstory of this book. So why did you feel compelled?
So with the Ocean Baths book, I was basically like wandering around Newcastle, like just shooting street photos. So what I'd do, I'd come into Newcastle and because I didn't really have like a focal point for photography like anymore. Like I didn't have a job at newspaper. Like I sort of do like photo jobs, but they're just photo jobs. You know what I mean? Like it's not something that I particularly enjoyed doing. I wasn't shooting skateboarding anymore. So I started going into Newcastle and just wandering around the foreshore and also like wandering like through the streets. So I'd go for like walks up King Street, Hunter Street, and just like looking for like things in the late afternoon that stood out because I like the way that the sun sort of recedes like in the west and it kind of lights everything up like a candle. So I found myself down at the Ocean Baths, and I was like sitting like at the Ocean Baths and I was looking at like on the eastern seaboard, like there's these starting blocks. So they're these white like tombstone looking blocks with like black numbers on it. And basically like the swimmers do laps like between these starting blocks, but the way the light hits these blocks, it just lights them up like a candle. So I was just captivated by the light and more so I was captivated by like the swimmers, not so much swimming, but just like their portraits of them, like at these starting blocks doing whatever they do, like sitting there thinking, I don't know, maybe adjusting their goggles as they're about to swim another lap, taking a breath of air. And the more I started going down there photographing, like just driven by the light, I started to develop like sort of an interest in this culture of swimming, like the same as, I'd develop an interest in skateboarding or surfing or anything. And then I started documenting it. So trying to capture like different aspects of the culture of ocean baths, swimming that's unique to Newcastle and the Merryweather ocean baths. And what unfolded was a book, 100-page book. Yeah.
Can you talk about the camera that you used to shoot that whole book as well?
Yeah. So with the Starting Blocks book, I principally used the medium format like studio camera. It's called a Mamiya RZ67. So it's a camera that's really designed to be used like with studio lights, like on a tripod. But yeah, I used that camera because I wanted to shoot like a larger format to try and get like more detail more particularly with the portraits to begin with. But then ended up just using that camera to shoot the majority of the book. And then I also used like a large format camera. So again, that's an older style camera. It shoots 4x5 inch film, which is film that's roughly like the size of like a compact disc cover, like it's a fairly big image. And I was using that camera because I could shoot infrared and things like that. Like, so basically I was interested in looking at how people's bodies react to heat when they're in the water. So through using infrared film, I was able to blacken the sky, blacken the water, bring out the clouds and make people look like white floating objects. It's really cool.
I love the night photos as well.
Yeah, that's your wall there.
Dude, I know. I was trying to show it to Jim, like, hint, Jim.
See
like,
that?
what's going, come on, man.
I walked around, I
You don't
flashed
wanna shoot
that.
it. He doesn't want to shoot it.
I flashed
Yes,
that
I do.
wall. I flashed that wall about 40 or 50 times with a speed light, so I painted the wall.
What do you mean?
So that's so there's a photo we're looking at. It's of an elongated like ocean barbs wall. So it's this big wall that it's got steps so people can sit on it and sunbake and that sort of thing and just look at what's going on in the pools around. It's a big long wall. It's about 25 meters long.
It's amazing.
But I put the camera on a tripod and I did like a 15-minute exposure at night, and that wall would usually be black, like you wouldn't see anything. But I walked around and painted the wall with a flash. So you just walk every meter, you go bang with the flash, bang, 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 bang. So I flashed it about 50 times.
So it actually looks
Like it's
bright.
looks like a shot with just one flash, but it
dude.
was. I had two flashes, like I was holding like two Colt guns, you know, like
Wow.
one here, one the other, bang, bang, bang,
Yeah.
bang, 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 bang. I just walk around, just light the whole thing up.
Dude, there's a bit of a genius vibe here.
Oh well, I sort of got. The funny thing that was like
You don't feel
Gabe Morford and like Lance Dawes, and remember that Santa Rosa skate park, like in. They did that once, but
And you
they
learned
did it. They did it way better than me. Like they did it with color film and they used colored gels. So like it's in one of those old slap magazines. Remember it would be like their still life picture at the end of the magazine, or Santa Rosa skate park, and it's lit up with blue, yellow, red, green. It's just and they did the same thing probably. They just walked around flashing it, that type of thing.
It's a technique, right?
Yeah, I understand like the principles of like photography and the way that light sort of goes into a camera, like whether it's hitting a digital sensor or whether it's hitting a sheet of film. It's just the same thing, and lights are exactly the same as well.
Interesting.
It doesn't; those fundamentals of photography haven't changed one bit.
Did you know that, Jim?
I mean, I wouldn't have articulated it like that. He's way more switched on. But
You
like I
have
said,
heard of that technique.
yeah, but like maybe not even as somebody that's interested in, maybe somebody that's interested in photography, as somebody that's interested in photography, not somebody as a photographer.
Okay.
Because I'm interested in it as an art, as an observer as well, more so than somebody that, I only really take skate photos and.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I consume all photography,
Cool.
Yeah, there's sort of like no rule. There's no rules to what you can do, or right or wrong way of doing something, and you just sort of you can do anything you want, really.
Yeah, like
Sort of-
I mean, I feel
like-
I feel the passion in actually with the skate stuff. Like I know that it's like you've accumulated those images over years of shooting photos for various reasons, but for some reason with the Starting Blocks book, I don't think you realize it's actually made an impact on me and on my children because so for example,
appreciate that.
can I put it in context really quick? So context is, I'm living in a place where I'm unfamiliar. Moved to Newcastle to be closer to my children, so it's not home for me. And so spending time with my children is very important, but I don't feel like I have a solid home here. So we found this common places where we really have a good time together as a small family, and it's the ocean baths. So when Jim gave me this book and I had it laying around the house, the kids
like
are
pick
just
it up.
enamored with it.
That's unreal.
It's interesting, isn't it? So, like, do you ever consider the impact you're having on people without even knowing?
Never. But I really,
Never.
I feel like what you're telling me like makes me feel like it. I really appreciate like that. I really do, like, because you sometimes feel that you just sort of, I'm just pumping out projects, I wouldn't say, I don't pump them out either, really, but like, I have this idea in mind, and like I have a project, like the Starting Blocks, that was a project, and I gave myself X amount of time to shoot it, and then I kind of put the book together, processed all the film, did all of this, and then done. I finished it now, and then I sort of move on to the next one, and I don't actually sort of like take time to stand back and recognize the impact that's made on anyone, because I didn't have a book launch, I didn't have an exhibition, I don't know, like it's
What's driving it? Like the potential for money? Or just pure passion?
Just pure passion. Yeah, there's no, I couldn't care less about money for that. Photography, like, and then, yeah, the money, the aspect of money that's just starting to become a little bit too expensive to buy film now, like, which is sort of just bordering on insanity to kind of try and, that's only recent though. Like, but I was also trying to think, I was so passionate, I wouldn't say passionate, but like my first 10, like, remember I was talking about how I was a newspaper photographer. You could bear in mind, like, when digital cameras and things like that came out, I was one of the first photographers that started using, like, full digital setup. Like, I had a digital SLR camera, like, around the time that the Sydney Olympics were on. Like, that was... And then and I also stopped taking skating photos around that time. But you got to bear in mind, say, from about the year 2000 to 2008, like, digital cameras weren't that fantastic. Film cameras were still kind of the go-to if you were going to, like, be publishing, like, imagery, like full bleeds, things like that. But I'd been shooting, like, I'd stopped shooting, like, film completely and was just working with digital cameras. And I guess, like, I sort of realised that there was the tactile approach to photography, like processing film, looking at negs through loops and then using enlargers and things like that, putting, like, paper through chemical trays and coming out with a print. All these, like, facets of photography that basically they didn't exist in my world anymore because I wasn't doing that anymore, and I realised that there was just something that was completely empty. So I started, like, I dusted off my film cameras and started using them again. Also because I realised that film's finite now, so there's probably going to be only, like, I just tried to get what I could out of it for the last 10 years of why they're making decent film. Ultimately, though, it won't be manufactured. And if it is, it would be shit. It won't be like Fuji and Kodak and stuff doing it anymore. Yeah, I don't think they will be anyway, yeah. Yes, I just wanted to shoot as much of it as I can because I realised I missed it so much.
You're not really considering also, yeah, like I said, the human impact that you're having on people potentially.
I'm hoping, like, like what you said to me, like, I appreciate, and with the two of you, like,
same with what Jim does too, like, and any artist or writer or creative. I wonder if they consider that potentially they're going to impact someone. That's ultimately, like, I think that's what underlies it all. Is it?
Yeah, like, I don't see the point in, like if you can sort of, like, make an impression upon somebody, like, you've done, it can only make you feel good in life, and sort of but yeah.
To put it this way, for me, being a fan of yours before I met you, I had, like, and I can access it now in my brain, I have a back catalogue of your photos in my mind, right? Without ever having met you in person.
It's crazy.
So something that you kind of sat down, framed up, took a photo on film, had it developed and published in a skateboarding magazine, like, was so influential on me in the way that I saw skateboarding, the world, Sydney as a city as well. That it actually, like, there's, like, a folder, and same with Amelia's stuff too, but you two, like, definitely almost framed the way that I see cities.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that's awesome.
Like, I feel like when I saw Amelia's, the 360 flip down, and I've said this before, that 360 flip of Alex Smith down into the pit, that cover, it made me feel like it was the first time I really saw, like, Sydney represented as, like, this kind of cosmopolitan city. in the skateboarding sense. You know what I mean? I know it had been other work, like in the art world and stuff. And I feel the same way with your photography as well. Like there's this kind of way that you guys elevated Sydney to be taken seriously almost as like a serious city in the skateboarding world.
Yeah.
And it gave it like this certain gravitas that I don't, you know, as a historian of these things and going back and looking at it, there's all these amazing photos obviously before that stuff. But to me, like, yeah, it ultimately, fundamentally changed the way that I like look at and perceive cities that I've traveled like all around the world to, and even the way that I interact with them, like going to look at places that I've seen in your photos, just so I can say that I've seen it in person. You know, like that's a pretty amazing thing. And now, like, it's kind of then trippy to be friends with you now as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I was really sort of like lost for words because, like, I think the whole, like, what photographer doesn't want to make an impact on that's why you take photos in the first place, you know, and to inspire or to sort of kind of, yeah, that makes me feel good, you know, like I really appreciate
for
both
sure.
you, Shannon, and you, Jim, for like what you said. It's awesome. But kind of lost for words for it, but certainly like it's, I would love to have like Apprentice or something like that. Like I sort of
Pass on
like,
the...
yeah, because on newspapers and stuff, I never really had like apprentices onto me and stuff like that. I would have been pretty good, I reckon.
What's next? Like, what's in the works, do you think? You got something else going on? Any other projects in the works?
The project, so I didn't tell you, so I did, so this is all going back, so going back like 7 years ago, like I had a job, like I worked in the NRMA for about a year, like I worked in road service, so I was taking like all these phone calls, like on, you know, they like send out a tow truck or send a mechanic out, try and, you know, like help people out.
Yeah.
Ran out of fuel.
Yeah.
Sitting in the car.
You're that person that would answer the phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then like, yeah, and log the road service call. But what happened when I was doing that job, right? Like it was like NRMA is like New South Wales, and you know, like people also break down like Northern Territory and other states. But I started getting these calls, you know, like someone calling from Cobar, someone calling from Deniliquin, someone calling from like Broken Hill. And I'm starting like sitting there like in this dull job, you know, logging these breakdown calls. I'm sort of like listening to the people on the phone, and I'm sort of just imagining like what it's like where they are. So I'm working the NRMA, and over the course of a year, like I'm taking calls from all over New South Wales, and it sort of just gave me this idea to go out and pursue a project on regional New South Wales. So I went and bought a 4-wheel drive, and I went out camping for like sort of bush camping type thing, you know, like free camping. Like you didn't pay to go do it.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You can just
pull up wherever
you pull up wherever you want. Really, you can. Like I didn't do that trip. I sort of stayed in those like wiki camps, free campsites, and all that sort of thing. But if I'm going to do it again, yeah, you can go anywhere. Just go stay in like Lakes Beach car park or something.
With a swag or something.
I'm even bolder than that. I'd fold my rooftop tent out. And
Oh, you had one of those?
Yeah.
They're good. Just on a side note.
Awesome.
Yeah, I see them, but I'm just like, it feels weird being up on the roof.
No. I mean, are you scared of heights though? Or?
Yeah, like, do you feel like you're going to roll off?
Yeah, and that don't happen. But the thing is, like, you just got to worry about like when the wind picks up. You might be blowing off that roof.
Like, what if you're with? When I asked that.
What if you're with a girl in there
Yeah.
or something like that, and you just don't want to be like, you don't want the roof of your car to collapse. It's very best just take it easy. Yeah. Too much downward pressure, mate. Just being silly.
No.
So I pursued like
Serious.
So I went out like and that was like a project I did like 7 years ago, and that was actually another book. It's called Corrugated. It's called Corrugated
you've already
State.
made it.
Yeah, I just didn't print that one because I wasn't really
Like, are you self-funding these?
Yeah, I just pay for it all myself. Like I design it and just
And then make a bunch of copies and then try and sell it to bookshops.
Yeah, I don't even really try and sell it. I just make a bunch of copies. I haven't been trying to sell them too much, but yeah.
Why not? Even just to recoup your costs.
Yeah, just like
Don't care. Too much
I
effort.
don't care about the costs. Well, I'm not. It's not driven by like wanting to make a profit out of it, but it's hard to make a profit out
Not
of
even
doing
a
this.
profit. It's a break even.
It's just I just want to kind of I don't mind. Like I haven't thrown like
Is it just
too much money in. It's just the labor. Like I enjoy doing it. But yeah, so coming back to the question about the projects. Well, that's a project from like 8 years ago that. Really, like all I need to do is just print that book. I've still got to like try and tidy up a few things with the introduction on it and stuff like that, and that's actually really cool. And then that book, and then I've got another one. So there's meant to be that was the original trilogy was Backlight and the Grain Angels, Skateboarding, Starting Blocks, the Ocean Barbs, Newcastle and Merewether, and then Corrugated State, regional towns of New South Wales.
epic?
But I've since then got another project, like my current project is about graffiti. And I'm hoping I'll turn this into a book. So it's looking like there's going to be 4 of them. What do they call that? A quintet? Is that?
Yeah.
Quartet. 4. Yeah, because I'm going to have the 4th book. And that's about regional. It's about
Quartet?
Quintet.
Yeah, quintet's 5. Queen is 5.
Oh, man. How, Jim? You've got the wordsmith here. True wordsmith here. Which is
Quarter. Yeah.
Quartet. Quintet.
Quarter of an ounce.
But
You
yes.
could say quadrology.
So yeah, there's a project I'm working on at the moment, like a current project, which is about, I've been out photographing like graffiti on train carriages. So I've like focused on a project that's unique to Newcastle, like the Hunter area. So I'm photographing like coal and grain carriages. Yeah, so I go to Carrington and Stockton and Mayfield, different places, the train yards.
So what's drawing you into it? Is it the contrast between like a grain carriage, which is farming, and the urban vibe of
they're all
street art or graffiti?
That's interesting. Like,
do you think that's what it is a clash of country and city?
Man, I haven't.
You can use that in your bio.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like, it's sort of, I just found myself doing it. Like, I'm just
curious, like, what's drawing you to that then? Like, you don't
no
have
idea, because I'm
you're
not even
a graffiti guy. You
not
don't have a graffiti
remote, not
background.
even into graffiti.
Did you ever, like, I mean, because a lot of the Sydney guys were writers. Like,
I never graphed.
Graph
but I
writers.
always photographed it.
Yep.
Always, like.
because you were around a lot of it when you would have been, because I know a lot of the heads that you were taking photos of in the 90s definitely wrote, even if they were just tagging.
Yeah, like. Yeah.
What are you drawn to?
But-
Bizarre.
Yeah, I'd always like, because if you have a look at old magazines and things like that, there was always like I always like photographed it like in the context of like, if I saw a piece or something, I'd photograph it and then they might use it like in the background with other photos and things like that. I was always taking pictures of it, but it's the same. It's exactly the same thing as like the Ocean Barbs book. I just found myself at the same place trying to photograph the same thing, and I don't know really why I was doing that. And then after a while, a body of work just starts to materialize and then the projects form. But it's not actually driven intentionally by anything. The project just unfolds haphazardly or incidentally or whatever. Like the one thing that we were talking about this though when we were talking on the phone yesterday, is that it's the textured surface of the carriages that drives this. Okay, like the graffiti just looks amazing on these brushed steel train carriages that you see. It just looks incredible. And then like with black and white photography, like the whole thing about that, it's about the representation of tonal values to try and give the image a feel of texture. Does that?
Yeah, dude.
That's what the essence of black and white photography is. You see it in like old photos like Edward Weston. He took a photo like of a capsicum and it looks like two bodies together. Or he took a photo of a porcelain toilet bowl and it just looks like a beautiful figure. Like, it's about, I don't know.
I noticed that actually in your Starting Blocks book, there's one particular photo at Merewether Ocean Baths, and it's got the shallow kids pool and then the deeper pool next to it, and you've taken it from above. And for some reason, I don't know if it's the wind direction, the shallow kids pool, the surface texture, like the ripples were going one way, but then in the big pool, the ripples were going an opposite. They were just too contrasting textures. It was bizarre. Maybe I don't know what the wind was doing that day. So yeah, that's the theme.
Yeah, sort of.
You're drawn to that.
Yeah, just with.
But
just,
also,
yeah,
it's also just such a very, even with the skate photography like book, there's just it's very human.
Yeah, the skateboard, like with
Yeah,
this,
like-
I didn't mention this, but like, say around the time like I shot the like Backlight in the Green Angels, the skateboarding, like I wanted to be a journalist, photographer. Like that's when I started working at Fairfax newspapers at the time, and my biggest influence would have been like Magnum photography. So you're looking at like those, like like the photographer Steve McCurry who took like the Afghan eyes, things like those photographers were a huge influence.
She's doing a switch front, so pop shove it. Anyway, keep going.
Wouldn't mind laying there.
Yeah. Keep going.
But yeah. So yeah, there's
Sorry,
yeah. It's funny because like different influences in photography have also like have driven like the way I've approached these books. Like the skateboarding book was photographed like.
yeah, like that
25
one there.
years ago.
Like that one
it
there,
was a
Aaron.
different approach to
Look at that. Like the textures of the surfaces.
yeah.
Is that a trip?
That's a yeah.
Yeah, it looks
What a
amazing.
contrast.
That's because it's got
Why?
That would be like because
Like that's smooth. Is it because it's lower or something? One's like smooth and the other one's ruffled, and they're right next to each other.
cool that photo. I never even. I pretty nice. I like that picture. See, there's the three figures and the little kid in the wetsuit behind. They're all walking in the same. They're all got the same footsteps. It's like big. It's like dad, middle man, son.
Yeah.
It's a cool pic.
But yeah, it really does seem like you are interested in humans and I guess documenting the human experience in some way.
Yeah, I also love the photos. Like I was into like Vietnam War photography, like heavily. Like that was. So there was like this photographer called Larry Burrows, and there was two of them. There was this guy. Oh, there was a heap of good photographers from that era, but they really like, and in those like particularly like the photographers that were covering like that conflict. Their whole impetus was to create these images that will end the war. You know what I mean? Like, and they were looking like trying to really and kind of I don't know. I didn't want to use the cliche, but like highlight the human condition, so to speak. What people are going through. You can see that in the portrait. Portraits are wonderful for kind of like showing how someone feels about things. You can usually see it in their eyes or give you a bit of an idea of things. I love portraits. Yeah.
Yeah, so Jim was telling me about you actually received a photography award for a sports photo.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I got like two. So one
Okay, tell us about it.
So the first one of them was like so I won like Australian Suburban Newspapers Award, like for like a best editorial photo. And it was that was a long time ago. Like I won that. That was like 2004 or something. But this is funny. I'll tell you a funny story after this one. But that one, like basically, I went down like it was just a briefing. Like when you work in newspaper, they give you a little briefing, and it was to do with like the Mascot Juniors, like under 10s football club have got a new sponsor, and they're all got a brand new jersey. That was like the news briefing. So I go down and meet like the coach, and all the little kids are down there and all in their little soccer gear or whatever. And like I can see it had been like just one of those shit of a days, like it's been raining, drizzling or whatever. And then a bit of sun's come out and there's this big arcing rainbow. I'm like, okay, like, and I could see that this was only going to last for like 30 seconds or whatever. So like I just go into like photographer mode and just yell at them, or I would have put on like a long focal length lens, like a telephoto lens or whatever. So I could, go back and kind of like create this picture. Like, I wanted the rainbow just like coming out of like this huddle of kids, with their coach, like looking like they're having like a coach like soccer moment. And so I just screamed at them, "Get down there, get in the huddle, move over there," and I probably moved a little bit myself and lined up the picture and shot it, and that won the Australian Suburban Newspaper Awards. But that was you know, they only won the photo because of the rainbow. The photo wasn't really that great. I don't think it was anyway. But like, I'll tell you, a funny one. I'm not really like a sports photographer. Not really. Like, I'm more like I am a sports photographer, but I'm not.
Skateboarding's not a sport.
No, that's
It's a culture.
yeah. But like, I used to photograph sport quite a bit when I worked at newspapers. I used to go to NRL games and all that sort of stuff. I'd photograph like netball, all sorts of shit. You know, like just go photograph things. But I remember like I went to like I won like the Phil Treseder medal. Like Phil Treseder was this guy. Phil Treseder was like a sports journalist. So I've won like Cricket New South Wales like best cricket photo of the year award.
Really?
And, yeah, and I was working at like the Bankstown Torch at the moment. I hate cricket as well. So I would have only been there for like 2 minutes. I would have just rocked in. I'm thinking, I'm going to shoot this as fast as I can.
I haven't seen the photo. What's going on?
Yeah,
Describe it.
Yeah, it was one of those like moments like someone was bowled out. Like it was they were contesting. It was like a how's that moment.
Oh, okay.
And everyone's like, so like everyone on, like I've done a tight photo of the whole pitch. Like, anyway, it turned out to be some like definitive moment in the game of cricket that decided on the grand final win or whatever it was. But
And you captured it.
I captured it. But I only wanted to be there for 2 minutes. Like, go home and smoke some cones or something, you know, like whatever I had to do. That was back then.
And you won like a really prestigious award.
Yeah,
for it.
yeah, I got $500 as well with it. As well.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's funny. Like it's sort of yeah.
You're not proud of it?
No, because like it was the week. It was like what happened. Like with that job was like that. I only just got that job, and it was like around the same time that we moved up the Central Coast. Like, and it was just too much stress, and I crashed my car.
No way.
Like and it didn't have any insurance on it. Like.
Oh shit.
On Canterbury Road, so like, I just had to like, couldn't go back to my like, and anyway, like, so I moved up Central Coast with no job,
No car.
for a couple of months, no car, no money, and then like I ended up like ringing the editor of that newspaper group up, like 'cause I won the award and stuff as well,
Yeah.
in this period of time, and then they sort of got me back working on the news. I know my dad worked in the motor industry. Like we just got some bomb car so I could drive down to Sydney and go to work. But then I had another car accident on the Hawkesbury River Bridge. Like when we had we had a superstorm like come through about 15 years ago.
While you were driving?
Yeah. So and then
Was it the Pasha-Balka storm?
Yeah, the Pasha-Balka storm.
Oh,
yeah.
no shit.
Yeah.
How's about the Pasha-Balka?
I was driving. Yeah, so what was happening was like, you know, the Hawkesbury River Bridge coming from
Sorry,
Sydney.
that's an old joke between me
the
and a
Pasha-Balka.
friend. Sorry. When the conversation ever went dull, I would say, how's about the Pasha-Balka? But now I keep going.
I want to hear this story.
Yeah. So I was driving like
Sorry.
I'm just driving my car like down like on the M1, like coming on approach to the Hawkesbury River Bridge. Like if anyone's you ever driven there, you know, like it's a steep. Like they have like there's ramps on the side for trucks to fucking drive up if their brakes fail,
It's
things
chaotic,
like that.
yeah.
So and then it was raining. It was the Pasha-Balka was getting hammered onto Newcastle Beach.
In the rain, it was
the-
like coming down in sheets.
I know.
So it was crazy.
How's about the Pasha-Balka?
So as I got closer, like driving, I was in like the outside lane, like the overtaken lane, the third lane. And as I got a bit closer, it looked like a caravan or something. And I got a bit closer. It was just a car completely sideways.
Bullshit.
Like I was
in the
about
middle of the freeway.
not in the middle, and like blocking. There's two cars that basically had an accident. Like they hadn't hit each other, but one car was sideways blocking the lane, and the other car was locked up next to it, and it was raining, and I couldn't like I could either like. So what I did is I swerved my car so I wouldn't T-bone the woman because I would have killed her, and then I ran into the back of the other car. Like, so I couldn't have enough time to look at my rear vision mirrors to change lanes. I wasn't thinking, man, then I'll cause a fucking bigger accident. You know what I mean? Like, so I ended up like crashing into. I ended up like So, long story short, like my car got written off, and then the cops they fined me for like I don't know why, like, but I got fined for neg driving as well.
You say that like the road was blocked?
Yeah,
and
there
it
was nothing.
pouring rain?
Looking back at it, like but ended up, and then I just couldn't go back to my just a see you later job. Like I couldn't do it. Like I had no.
Well, because you had no transport anymore. No money.
Transport, and just embarrassed as well. Another car accident, things like that. I was I wasn't looking like the most reliable employee at the time. You know, like they wouldn't have.
Man, sorry to hear that.
I was 17 years ago.
You're over it now?
Yep.
You weren't stoned, were you?
Would have been, probably.
No, say no, Aaron. Say no. Say no. Say no.
No, he wasn't.
Thanks, Jim.
No, I wasn't. I didn't.
But how's about the Pashabolka?
Yeah, it's gnarly.
Jim?
Did you ever see the Pashabolka when it was up on the
I've
beach?
seen photos of it, and I've seen surf photos of it because, like, then people would surf and, like, it was actually the most interesting surf photography you'd ever been because, like, a lot of surf photographers were getting photos of surfers with the Pashabolka right there in the background.
It had a decent
and, like,
break.
a wave was breaking off it, like, because sand started to form next to it, and so
Yeah. I saw photos, like awesome photos of that, like dudes
Did you get a
doing.
photo of it, Jim?
No, but I mean, I drove past it a bunch of times.
Was everyone in Newcastle talking about the Pashabolka?
There was, yeah. I mean, my mum still brings up to this day if it starts raining, she'll be like, "Oh, there's going to be another Pashabolka."
I went and saw it. Like I went up the beach and checked it out, and it was literally like the nose of that ship was on the beach. And I looked at it and thought, they're never going to get that off the beach. I was just amazed.
Yeah,
that
how'd they get it off
that.
the beach?
They towed it out.
They waited for like the currents
tide.
and like a super
Super high.
tide, and then those tugs are just gnarly.
Are they gnarly?
Yeah, they got heaps horsepower.
Shit.
Yeah,
Ah, Pashabolka.
but yeah, incredible that
Brings
they
back
did that, hey. And when you see it in real life, yeah,
Those things are massive, dude.
it's massive.
Like
The bulk carrier.
I still when they come in the harbour, like I still go, oh wow, man, look at that.
Yeah, it's still real seeing
Like a
it.
little kid, yeah, like they're big.
So how long have you lived in Newcastle for now?
Year and a half.
Oh, you're only new.
Yeah, I'm a stranger in a strange land full of strange people.
Yeah, because I got because like me, like on Central Coast, I'll never be local.
No, same.
Yeah.
I'll never be like, I get it. I get it.
Like, and I've been 17 years, and I still tell people that, like I said, I'm not.
17 years there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you still say you're from Castle Hill if someone asks where you're from?
yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, because I'm I'm not. I do. No, I'll tell people I live in Central Coast. I wouldn't say, yeah, shit, man. I'm not gonna tell people I'm from Sydney.
Do you mind if I ask, like, living with your parents?
Yeah, I like it. Like,
You cool with it?
my parents are getting older. Like, my mum's
Are you a
81,
carer?
my dad's
Yeah.
80. No, I'm not a carer. Like, I have, like, I got a job and things like they can care for themselves, but like I do a shitload of things around the house that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
Okay.
Like it's yeah, I don't really, like it's the point where it's other people will have to do it themselves as well. Like it's just, and I'm glad that like my parents, like because I work in market research and like I just got a regular shit job. Like I go work and interview people, but I go in the nursing homes and things like that. Like, and I so I just think like, yeah, your family's important. And
Yeah.
kind of like, I think like by me being around my parents, like as much of a challenge as I am to them, like it's probably good for them. Yeah.
But also, like, our culture of putting elderly people into nursing homes.
Yeah.
A lot of cultures don't do that. The parents live with the family, and the grandchildren, and they're all in one
Absolutely.
compound. And yeah, but we're in a society where we have to work long hours to keep up with financial responsibilities, and then that means we can't look after our family, including our children, because then we put our children into daycares, we put our elderly people into nursing homes, so we can keep up with the finance that we have to pay off. It's pretty strange when you think about it that we're paying other people to look after the most important people in our
Yeah,
life.
you're spot on. Like you're seeing it like,
Just an observation.
from both ends,
Yeah.
from
And I
from
personally-
childcare through to aged care.
But I personally really struggle with it as a teacher.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm with other people's kids more than my own.
Yeah,
It just
yeah.
seems weird. Like, why can't I just be teaching my kids, you know?
Yeah, we sort of live in a funny, like maybe, I mean, like there's something like when you live with your parents, like and you're older, like you don't have like I've got to be mindful of things like my parents, it's their house, things like that. Like I don't think they mind me being around or anything like that. I think they do appreciate it, but you know, I don't have the independence that I'd like and the privacy that I'd like with me, you know what I mean? Like with some things, like there's that trade-off to it, which maybe some other people just aren't willing to kind of like to do that trade-off. But there's going to be like a point where, I don't know, I think that we will be living in larger families like down the track. Like it's not just because of like housing affordability. We just got to look after each other.
100%.
Yeah.
Completely.
Here.
Speaking of families, you mentioned earlier that do you have an older brother as well?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Nathan.
Does he live locally as well?
He's in Borkham Hills.
Oh, right.
So he's
down
still in the old hood.
there.
Yeah.
And you guys keep in touch?
Yeah, I saw him like on the weekend. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did
He's not he never skated or nothing like that.
Did he get the okay from Glenn and Hank to be called a Borko or?
My brother.
Yeah.
That's a good. Well, the only thing is, yeah, I think the funny thing is like if you know Glenn and Hank, like they'll be respectful to my brother. Hey, like
Of
which
course
is,
they will. I'm joking.
but so I don't know if they'll call him Borko, but he's part of. He's sort of, yeah, he's
Borko.
He's Borko. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in a weird way, but like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like starting a family, ever something you wanted or not really?
Well, that's
Wasn't
another
really-
like
Is it too personal to ask that?
No, not at all. Like, it's sort of like looking at it, thinking the prospects of starting a family now. Like, I'm going to be like shopping for something secondhand. You know, come on, you know, like it's true.
Because how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 50.
Right. All right. You
dude.
don't look 50 at all.
Dude, you're in good company. Yeah.
And yeah, so shot and
So you're not interested in like
that will
secondhand goods?
No, I am, but like it's not like you don't sort of like you can't think, oh, okay, like I just want something brand new. I don't want something that's been married before or already had kids. Come on, I've got to start putting it into perspective and look at my age and the reality of the situation. If I am going to have a family, I'd say it'll be one of those. I'll be down for it if I love her, and
It's not
yeah.
something. It's not something you're chasing necessarily. Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm not chasing
Yeah.
it. I would, not chasing it.
Yeah.
No.
Fair enough.
I was sort of like, I guess it's sort of, it's kind of, you've always like the prospect of like, you don't want to be alone. Like, I mean, well, I don't mind. I've been alone for so long. I don't mind it actually, like in the sense of partnering up with someone. Like I don't have to really worry about that. I quite like just being by myself. It doesn't bother me. Some people can't hack that. You know what I mean? Like, but
true.
I mean, like, say for example, like I started seeing someone recently, and I quite enjoyed like being involved in the relationship. Like, so yeah, you just see what happens. Like,
Yeah.
and then you embrace it if it's something to.
Nice, man.
Yeah,
That's a really honest way of saying it, you know, see what happens and then embrace it. So a lot of people are searching for things that maybe are idealized and don't necessarily even exist.
well, I reckon I did that a little bit.
But the way you
like,
just said it just then was so lovely, you know, just like
Lovely.
see what happens and then embrace it if it does. That's a really lovely way to look at.
Yeah, so I'm slowly learning a few things as you become a little bit wiser
Yeah,
with
no, embrace
maturity.
it.
But you do have to try things as well.
Of course, put yourself out there.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So there was something else I was going to say. Oh, yeah. So we're talking, it was about prospect of having family. But there was another question
Starting
before
a
that.
family.
Oh,
Looking after elderly
yeah, I can't
parents,
remember.
family.
Your brother?
Your brother Borko?
Yeah.
No.
I think I had to, I might have said what I was planning to say, but I can't.
Yeah, I guess it's an interesting. I guess a conundrum.
Oh, yeah.
Go.
Remember what I was saying.
Yes.
So what it is like I didn't realize that. So I spent when I was looking at life. This is I've been reflecting and thinking about things a little bit lately. Is that I kind of some people. I'm noticing this with my job, like because I work in market research and I interview people like for the, like housing and income and labour type projects that. Anyway, get to the point. I meet different people and I talk to them and I can see that they set goals in life. Like I can sort of tell that their goal was to, kind of find some security and they might have that yearning to have children and have a family of their own and things like that. And so achieve those goals and then work towards, other personal goals, which is maybe like personal interests, things like that. Like I didn't, like my brain just didn't go that way. Like I just looked at photography and projects and just went that way. I didn't, and I sort of looked back and I don't know if that was because, I might be, you sometimes need a little bit behind you, like whether it's like collateral or emotional support. And sometimes that helps to have that behind you as well before you embark on setting out to achieve your goals. So there's no right or like I went. So yeah, I sort of think like I just was so, just wanting to be a photographer, like wanting to pursue my dreams, trying to survive, all these sorts of things, and just never had a family. Yeah,
Fair enough.
never. I was just it just seemed like it
Wasn't on your priorities. Didn't feel like following the
It
traditional.
wasn't like a priority. It just seemed like it was just too hard to try and accomplish the other things, let alone trying to find someone trying to hold my own sanity. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's lots of
You
things.
don't need that. And you said that. You actually said that too. You said, like you're okay with being alone. And like there's a lot of people who really aren't.
Yeah, I don't mind.
And if you're cool with that, like that's a strength, in my opinion.
The other thing is you created this body of work during that time that will kind of, like we were talking about before, it inspires other people, but will also live on after you.
I hope so. Like
After you're gone. And like, I know that's a long way off. I'm not being morbid. I don't mean it like that. But I mean,
it's not that far off though, really, like because it's funny when you hit 50, like you sort of start looking at.
you're very healthy.
You
though.
do. I know.
What I'm trying to say is that this body of work, though, that was like quite influential, like in like a certain subculture, and part of like kind of like a very certain niche Australian identity. It's a really strong body of work, and like that body of work will live on, and kind of like as like something that you've left for the world, and it's kind of like creating that is in some ways like the same as like that's creating your lineage, or like the same way as other people might have kids, and you know what I mean? Like you have that other thing there as well. It's not like the world passed you by or anything like that. You created this amazing body of work that like, the majority of people couldn't even imagine creating.
I really appreciate that.
Legacy,
Like,
man.
Yeah.
I always wanted, It's funny because like I sort of like I can feel that.
Sorry, dude.
No, it's okay. I'm hoping that in like I'm just wondering if that's something that's changed like in like because of like I certainly have like my photographers like there's this guy called Eugene Smith, like he was just brilliant. I just loved the guy's photography. He died like in 1974 or something, and he certainly I'm just one of like millions of photographers that have been impacted by his photography and just think, like that's just brilliant. And, like I love like what he was trying to convey in his images, whether it was a social issue or whether it was, just a portrait. I'm just wondering, like like sort of if there's going to be like influential photographers like in the future, like there has been in the past. With the way things are changing.
That was one of my starting questions, I think, too. Like, in this digital age, and I've asked other photographers this in the past. Like has digital photography devalued the craft and the art? And I guess after listening to you speak about this and other people, I actually don't think it has. I think the process is still a craft and it's a dark art that can never be perfected and all that. So I love
that dark art that can never be perfected.
I kind of look at it like when the camera was actually invented, when people first started taking photographs, especially like with the proliferation of the camera, people still painted. Originally, people were painting to capture an image.
I love like the first.
You know what I mean? And when it's not like when the camera came out, people were like, oh, why the fuck are you painting still? That's antiquated, man. You've got photos now. You don't need to do that anymore. I think it's the same thing with digital and film photography.
Just another medium.
It's a different medium. It's a different art form.
It's interesting what you just said. Like, so when photography like first came out, like the first like portrait, like it was portraits and landscapes, like were the main things that they were like shooting. They actually like used to use like soft lenses and things like that to try and make the early portraits look like paintings.
That's right, to mimic,
really?
to mimic paintings.
Yeah, they did. And then it was Edward Weston and Ansel Adams came along and like in like the 20s and 30s and they were like, hang on, this is shit. We got the whole idea is to make your photo look as sharp and as what I was talking about before with like the rendition of like tonal values in an image. Like that's what they were all on about.
There you go.
Like, paradigm shifted, so to speak.
And then there's painters who try to be as realistic, so it looks like a photo. Like FA actually put out a Dylan Reader board. Have you seen that?
No.
And it's a picture of Dylan Reader as a kid, and you think it's because you know how they did a series of just like portrait photos of the pro models, and
I know nothing.
They did. But then for Dylan Reader's, it was a portrait of him as a kid, but it was painted. But painted so amazingly, it looked like a photo. But you look up close, you're like, "Oh my god, that's a painting."
Yeah, you see that?
So maybe the mediums are complementing each other. I don't know. And maybe like you look at some digital work, and it'll give you inspiration for things you could do. In the manual process. I don't know.
But sort of come back to like that whole like notion of leaving a legacy. Like, I think of that. That's also like, who doesn't want to influence people and sort of have a positive impact on like the direction, and people can sort of like look at that and go, wow, that's fantastic, and then take it in their own direction. Yeah.
Well, artists and creatives and photographers are leaving more legacy items in this life than anyone else, And I ask guests that a lot, like, what do you want your legacy to be, But I think you've already answered it, and Jim sort of just asked you, and your image is going to be looked at for who knows how long, Already, even in this life, like we're looking at photos you took, 30 years ago. It's insane, or longer.
Yeah.
If you go into the State Library or the National Library of Australia, they hold Australian skateboarding.
Do they?
Yeah, and you can go and, have a look. Right now, in the National Library of Australia, you can search Australian skateboarding in their catalogues.
Yeah.
How many covers.
It's funny, there's like...
Will digital assets last that long? That's my question.
That's why
digital assets last that long? What if the internet just dies tomorrow?
Well, that's why it's important to preserve it in both mediums, physical and digital.
Yeah.
I like what this is... You've heard you guys, I don't know if you guys know about these. You got because when I was working in newspapers, they just sort of threw away all their negs and stuff.
Threw away what, sorry?
Their negs.
Did they?
Decades worth, just went straight into
storage.
Yeah, so there's I just hate to shatter the break the what's the shadow, the optimism that like
The illusion.
the illusion that people are going to be retaining this. Then some knucklehead comes along and goes, "Oh, we don't need that anymore."
We've got no space for that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Yes.
They do have the microfilms of the whole papers though. So they might not have the negatives from the original photos that went in the paper, but they have the microfilm and the microfiche of the papers themselves, which obviously not as good quality as the photo, but you can see where the photo ended up.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's
There
important.
you go.
I think the preservation of like our history is so important, especially like news media and things like that, and sort of archiving this material is like fundamental to sort of like understanding who we are and our history down the track. But yeah, I'm certainly one for that. But
Cool, man.
whether other people are going to be doing that's another thing. Yeah,
We'll see.
we'll see. Yeah,
We'll see.
got to be advocates for libraries and archiving things.
You're preaching to converted here.
Yeah.
I wonder if
Oh, yeah, I know that.
But I wonder if it's like as we get older, like, is it an old person thing? I mean, my grandmother used to really like have a lot of photos around the house, because I think she realized the importance of these memories and, archiving. Whereas as kids, I didn't give a shit, But as I get older, I'm like, oh man, I wish I documented more. I wish I archived more.
Yeah.
So
It's funny, like, I don't really like,
maybe it's an age thing.
yeah, it's sort of interesting as well, like, because I don't, like, this is, like, I don't take photos of, like, my friends and my family and stuff like that at all. Never
Okay.
have.
Okay. Too boring for you.
I don't know, like, just don't, like, and that's what most people would photograph, like, things that are in there, like, immediately familiar to them, like, yeah.
Okay.
If I was testing something, oh, Mum, I'll take a photo. Seriously, though, like, even my phone and stuff, I don't, like, do that too much. But,
Yeah. What do you think of iPhone photography?
Yeah, like, it was sort of like the new ad. Hey, like I saw this just the other night. They've actually got buttons on the side of the phone, so they're trying, like in the commercial, they were using it like a camera. Like I think the phone was pressed up. They weren't holding it like that. They were holding it pretty close, and there was buttons like shutter button, like you know what I mean, like a shutter button, clicking. As opposed to touching the screen, but
You can do that with the volume.
you
function.
can, yeah. But anyway, poking your fingers at screens to take photos and stuff, I reckon, I'm not too big on that.
You need a click.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but and then like the thing get me started with iPhones. Oh well, damn. Okay, like manipulating photos. Like, okay, light hits a sensor, and light can't really be manipulated too much. You know what I mean? Like, but just to blatantly like mix it up in post-production, like merging several photos into one so everyone's eyes are open in the photos. And man,
do people do that?
Yep.
I do.
Yeah, heaps.
So they got all this AI technology that's built into the camera phone. The camera phones are the worst for that sort of thing from what I could gather.
Well, in terms of like fixing photos.
Fixing photos, making skies look bluer than what they are, making colours look more vivid. I don't know. I'm starting to question whether I'm seeing the world correctly or is it the saturation of the software.
It's just standard now to put filter. It's standard to filter things. Like everyone almost expects it. Whereas like, I don't know.
They got you can basically there's software now so you can shoot an out of focus. I haven't used it. I've just seen you can shoot something out of focus and it'll focus it.
Yeah.
They'll have the modeling because it'd just be modeling the way they'll just have the sophisticated computering that's happening boom boom and it'll model everything like shadows, everything. That's just gonna be around the corner.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is the whole thing of that's the authenticity of an image is that's sacred.
It is.
You don't mess around with that.
I think you can tell.
Oh yeah.
Whether your eye is trained or not, it's that's what's authentic. It's like it's innate.
You reckon it's innate in us. You can there's something will set off an alarm bell that something just doesn't.
Something about it.
I mean, I think
that's been taken.
Think of some photos like in history. Lee Harvey Oswald with a shotgun. Mm-hmm. And they reckon that the shadow, like under his, doesn't fit with like. There was a photo like of Joseph Stalin, like with Lenin, and they took Trotsky out of the image. Like this is, out of it, and like fundamentally, that's changing history by doing things like that. Like, I do worry about the future with, especially with like artificial.
100% worry about the future. I worry about the present.
With like photography, and then I guess it's like photographer's philosophy as well. Like my integrity is going to be different to some. I work with photographers that don't have any integrity in what they're doing, and will change eyes or something. Like get it's not hard to do. They'll have like their banger photos, the one with the eyes closed, so they'll clone the eyes off another photo. Shit, man, you can't do that. Like, it's the eyes, for fuck's sake. Like,
well, Franken photo.
I don't know, but what I'm getting at is you sort of follow that. Like, there's lines that, I don't know. I'm not.
It starts to defeat the purpose pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The purpose of taking the photo in the first place.
Yeah. So it's the phones. I'm not big on phones at all.
Sorry.
Oh no, I don't use my phone. Like, but they'll just have more AI technology and the new, like the forthcoming phones that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
And and then just the inherent danger of the people operating those phones, and then how the images get used. Yeah.
I feel bad, like
I've gone pretty far with that. But it is.
But I mean, I use it.
I've just sort of been watching it for years now.
As a one man show in production.
Yeah, but you're using it as a multifaceted tool. You're not using it as your primary art form. You're not trying to replace what Aaron's doing.
Okay.
With your phone. You're using your phone as a tool, which is what it's supposed to be.
Take the portrait.
Even better, right? I love this when how's this? I love this when someone shows me a picture on their phone, and then like I shoot like 4x5 film, which like the negative is bigger than their phone.
Yeah.
and someone's telling me how great their phone photo is when I use large 4-bag cameras. You just go, man. Yeah, it boggles me.
That's hilarious, dude.
Yeah, but they're pretty good, and they're going to put all photographers out of work, and I just listen to this. Get back on, man.
That's hilarious.
Look, the video camera didn't put photographers out of work. The camera didn't put painters out of work. Paint didn't put charcoal out of work. All these things have been happening, and as long as we stay, as long as all of us stay true to our art forms, and
I think everything's going to be okay.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just saying that I don't think that.
I don't know.
I don't think you can never replace. I'm not saying people wouldn't try to, because I know they already are trying to, but I don't think anybody can ever replace what Aaron does.
Okay. Good. Let's hope so. I think it's almost a good way to end.
Yeah, I'm pretty.
How you feeling?
I've ran out of words, really.
How's about that Pasha Bolka? You hear about that?
You could see it from here.
Yeah, almost. Pasha Bolka.
You got a good view of the harbour.
Well, it's how I roll. Anyway.
All right.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Jim.
Mr. Aaron Brown, everybody. Yes.
I swore a couple times.